The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 400, The Awakening of the True Queen of Shadows 2. Although everyone was scared to death at the sight of Riai's transformation, Alex was the most worried of the group. Beads of sweat forming on his forehead, Alex tried to appease Riai just to make sure she hadn't lost her way. Riai, calm down, don't let your power get the better of you. I'm calm and in control. Silence. Alex didn't know how she could claim to be calm when her body was emanating such a chaotic aura that it gave even him the creeps. She seemed to be one step away from losing her humanity. The color of her skin began to change along with her mana that had turned dark and turbulent. Azores looked at the girl with a confused look. I don't know what's going on and how you can increase your power to such an extent. Your body should explode, unable to contain the power. But you're certainly an interesting specimen. My organization would surely like to experiment with you and learn more about your power, as I could sense some familiarity with it. Ha ha ha. Azores burst into mad laughter. However, he couldn't laugh for long as a vertical line appeared over his body out of nowhere. His eyes widened and a shocked expression appeared on his face, followed by the appearance of a line. Swish. The body was cut into 2 halves and fell to the ground. It's over, Noah muttered with a frightened look as he looked at the fallen corpse of the saint. She killed him with a single slash that my eyes couldn't even catch. While Noah was scared, Hunter and Den stood rooted to the ground watching the scene with a complicated look. Their gazes failed to witness any movement from Riai. It's not over, Alex muttered and looked up. Before Riai slashed and the slash touched the body, Alex saw a dark mass shoot up from the dissected body. The body that was cut seemed to be human skin or a vessel occupied by that man. Scream. What an honor, a being's disdainful voice along with a screech spread throughout the battlefield. Everyone looked at the source of the voice. Killing my ship is already a big deal, it said while laughing. The Azores' real bodies appeared with 2 bat-like wings behind their back. Their skin was slightly gray and there were gnarled claws on their hands and toes. Their body was covered in scales and their reptilian gaze stared at Riai. Their lips parted to form a grin that showed off large, crooked, sharp teeth. But anyone who looked at the smile could see an intense, burning anger. Girl, tell me, how do you want to die? His voice rang like thunder in everyone's ears. I'm afraid your strength isn't enough to kill me, Riai spoke as another wave of dark power shot out from Riai's body. And soon a pressure appeared, as if the world was collapsing on everyone. The world seemed to tremble as reality seemed to shake. The sky rumbled and darkened and everyone held their breath, no matter if it was Noah's or Alex's. Men. Run away. Yuck. Many fell to their knees unable to bear the pressure. Even Noah was forced to the ground with a horrified look. Except for the 2 mythical rankers of Alex and Noah, everyone fell to their knees. The darkness that enveloped Riai began to pour out from her body, and soon a writhing mass of darkness formed 5 pairs of hands. A dagger of darkness manifested in her hands, and she swept her left foot back while raising her chin. The dark aura around Riai grew increasingly fierce and soon she exploded. For a moment, purplish darkness descended upon the battlefield and then, ba-ong. Loud rumbling sounds that were loud enough to shatter eardrums could be heard. Everton heard the sound of a single explosion, but Alex, who was watching the scene, knew that single explosion was the result of 1,000 clashes and exchanges between Riai and Azores that occurred in an instant. The sky seemed to split apart due to the thunderous booms that echoed out one after another. The ripples, one after another, fell upon everyone. The waves created due to Riai and Azores' battle were strong enough to crush anyone below the rank of master. The entire terror of Renvier seemed to tremble in terror and fear. Boom. Another thunderous boom was heard, and Alex turned his gaze to notice that a mountain far away from them had been blown to pieces. Alex squinted at the battle with his heart beating wildly. He couldn't follow the fight properly, but an instant before the collision, he could see a figure shoot backwards and crash into the mountain. But sadly he couldn't identify the cause of the figure as it crashed, quickly got up and charged again. The battle was just beginning and soon, loud craters 100 meters in length appeared. Strong gales, like hurricanes, lashed out at everyone. It was a deadly situation. The situation of the people on the ground was quite desperate. It seemed as if they were trapped under a slowly advancing time bomb. Alex ordered all of his men to stay behind him. His men, who were swept away, began to gather behind him, carrying those who lost consciousness. He raised his sword and covered his men with a golden barrier that trembled with each passing moment. Noah followed suit and protected everyone, forming a barrier that was provided by the aura of two mythic rankers. Noah looked at Alex with a peculiar gaze and spoke shakily. "Is that demoness really your wife?" Alex's lips twitched for a moment. Firstly, they were enemies who were just moments ago fighting each other, and secondly, was this a situation to ask such a question? Looks like this guy has finally lost it, Alex thought to himself. Alex took a deep breath and spoke with a glare. "Now you understand, you never really had a chance, but do you think that matters now in this situation? Are you simply curious or just jealous that I have such a brave and beautiful wife?" A thick vein bulged on Noah's forehead when he heard Alex's answer, which almost made him cough up blood. He even thought, why the fuck did he ask such a naive question? Alex stared at Johnson, who looked like a frail old man swaying back and forth due to the raging storm outside. His eyes seemed to be lifeless. He seemed to be in a state of immense shock and had already given up on his life. His gaze then turned to Ian and Max, who simply stood there with a blank expression and shaky legs. The other men in his squad seemed to have already fainted. Alex wanted to say something but was puzzled by their expressions. "It seems I have to start your mental training and increase the difficulty of the other courses." As if some kind of healing spell had been cast, everyone snapped out of their stupor and shouted. "We're all fine." Johnson, who was still in shock, wakes up from Max's call and weakly mutters, "It's okay, you'll get used to this, old man." At that moment another gale hit a barrier like a tsunami, forcing everyone to retreat. Chapter 401, Annihilated. While maintaining the barrier, Alex bore the brunt of the attack as he collided with the barrier. Dust and smoke covered everything around him, blocking everyone's vision. When the smoke dispersed and the dust settled, the scene that appeared before them horrified them. They all seemed to be standing on a barren piece of land. Why? Because there was simply no mass of vegetation left around them. The thick treetops, the huge pieces of tree trunks and wood along with the small bushes and shrubs. Everything just vanished. There was no trace of them left. They all seemed to be crushed into millions of pieces of sawdust that mixed with the air or flew away due to the intense wind. Anyone who witnessed the scene would be forced to wonder if they were hallucinating or it was all a previously created illusion. But they were able to think clearly as they noticed the green mass that seemed to be a few kilometers away from them. While everyone was baffled beyond their wildest dreams, Alex stood motionless as he stared up at the sky. Everyone looked at him and then looked up. Their expressions hardened as the two black dots collided with each other in the sky. Alex gritted his teeth and clenched his fist. At first he felt quite helpless. While his wife was struggling and risking her life, he seemed to be doing nothing. He was nothing more than a spectator. It seems like he has become a worthless existence. Even if he made a move, it would only cause trouble for Raya. The only way to reach them was to use the power of darkness, but he wondered if using that power he could reach such strength. In order to use that power, Alex needs dark mana. Since this world lacks it, he converts pure mana into dark mark mana from corpses that emit a deathly aura, which is also a type of dark mana. The reason he was able to push himself and gain so much power 2 years ago was due to being in a place filled with natural dark mana. There was a large amount of dark mana, and on top of that, Alex was able to steal a portion of that enemy's blessing. Now the question arises, how can Raya use the power of darkness and have such a dense concentration of dark mana? Alex didn't know the answer to the first question, but after many observations, he knew the second. Unlike Cherry, Raya seemed to have a proper union of humans and creatures of darkness. So as a creature of darkness, her body can store the power of darkness. While Alex cannot store the power of darkness in its natural state, she can simply manipulate it and use it temporarily in darkness mode. Every time Raya kills, a portion of the enemy's deadly mana is absorbed by Raya, and it is a subconscious action until Alex points it out. The Dem Insider had been storing a large amount of reserves, and the key to opening it was to force it into a state where there was no hope of survival anymore. Now Raya had opened the gate, and all the dark mana stored within it seemed to gush out at once. The battle continued and shockwaves resonated one after another, as if artillery was being fired from all sides. The space around both of them began to shatter. Then, a dark thunderclap was heard all around as a huge mass of energy condensed and covered the entire sky. For a moment everything turned dark and night fell. And after that, whistle, boom, something exploded like a volcano, and mountains and rose erupted due to the loud bang. Alex noticed a deadly bolt of lightning passing through them, and a gigantic crack appeared in front of them. The ground was cut apart, and a crack was formed that extended up to a distance of 3 kilometers. Such was the power, it left everyone stupefied. Alex's heart began to pound. It wasn't fear, but rather excitement after witnessing the marvelous fight. Soon darkness took over and a body soaked in dark blood with cuts and slashes all over its body appeared in everyone's vision. The Azores who came with pride and arrogance had both of their hands cut off. One of their wings was shattered and their teeth were broken. On the other hand, Riya also had wounds all over her body but nothing was lethal. The Azores looked at Riya with hateful eyes and screamed. He had never imagined that the woman who looked like a mere legendary had such a terrifying look. "Help me," she screamed and took out a magic paper. Alex's eyes flashed and he screamed. "It's a summoning paper. Kill him before he can use it." Riya's body shook and breaking the sound barrier Riya sped towards the Azores. However, she was too late. Azores tore the paper and soon a light appeared. Riya's body froze for a moment. Riya was hit by an invisible force and her internal organs were damaged and she shot back. Bang! Alex's body exploded with a huge explosion and in the span of a moment, he appeared on the path where Riya was thrown and, catching her, he teleported back. Alex's teleportation dispersed Riya's momentum. If Alex didn't catch her now, Riya would be thrown a kilometer and might be in a life or death situation. The bright lights dissipated and a vague human silhouette appeared. Noah's eyes turned solemn and he shouted in anger, "Shameless, how can you summon a supreme ranker to deal with us? You dare to curse me after I've reduced you to such a pathetic state?" Azores shouted in agony. A silhouette of the supreme ranker manifested before him. "You summoned me to deal with them, what a waste of resources. After you return, you will be punished and then punished." The silhouette spoke in displeasure, but stopped when it saw Riya covered in darkness. The silhouette was too vague, and Alex's eyes of truth didn't work on it. Alex's body shuddered, while Riya, who was in his arms, roared like a wild beast. "Riya, calm down, return to normal," Alex shouted as he tightened his arms and wrapped them around Riya's wrist. But Riya struggled and threw his hands away. Alex's eyes widened as he saw his sclera darken and his skin turn dark and hard. It seemed as if someone had lost their humanity and taken on the appearance of darkness. "Riya!" Alex screamed in panic as he saw Riya's transformation was getting out of control. The pair of dark hands began to move in disarray and struck Alex. His heart skipped a beat, but a bigger problem appeared before him as the supreme ranker made his move. The world seemed to lose its color. For a moment, a crimson darkness descended upon the battlefield. Screams, roars, and human pains echoed everywhere. The darkness slowly began to fade and disappeared. The world slowly regained its color and then a gigantic explosion occurred as if a hydrogen bomb had exploded eradicating everything. And as the destruction ceased, all of Ranveer's terror disappeared. The dense forest, the vast wilderness, and the numerous mountain ranges have all disappeared. The huge mountains were decimated into small hills. A huge crater with a radius of 20 kilometers appeared, destroying everything in it. The supreme ranker after launching such massive destruction disappeared with a few words. "Azor, I have finished with both requests. Inform the demon and the other party about this before returning." Chapter 402, It Seems I've Been Tricked. Knock. 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 Inside a wide hallway leading to the passageway, the only sound echoing out was that of the fat guy walking down the path. The fat on his stomach swayed from left to right as he walked, causing many to look at him in disgust. Along the way, many guards saw him and raised their eyebrows as it might be their first time seeing this fat pig in such a hurry. This pig was not as fat as he was now. He was once a capable warrior but over time, due to arrogance and pride in staying at his post, he became lazy to the point that his body had accumulated tons of fat. The fat guy, after walking a long distance and covered in sweat, arrived at the end of the path and stood before a huge chamber guarded by strong knights. "General Shen, what's wrong? You look very happy now. Did something happen?" "Ha ha ha. You can think of something similar to that," Shen said with a wide smile. "I want to discuss something with His Highness." "Please inform him." The knights narrowed their eyes and shook their heads. They didn't inquire further and one of them went inside to report. After 5 minutes, the guard returned and said, "You may enter." "Thank you," Shen muttered and walked inside. Shen saw Hex sitting at the table while writing something. Hex stopped his work for a moment and raised his eyebrows as he noticed Shen's elated expression. His body seemed to scream in happiness for some reason. "What brings you here?" Hex asked with narrowed eyes. Shen tilted his head and spoke. "Your Highness, I have brought you good news. Alex is dead." Silence pervaded the place after Shen spoke. Shen noticed Hex staring at him with a blank expression, but if one looked closer, one could notice that Hex's lips were slightly curved upwards. Since Shen was quite close to him, he was naturally able to sense it, but for a moment he felt surprised and confused. Because Hex seemed to be happy but he wasn't surprised. Shouldn't he be surprised and ask me how and why it happened? Why is he just staring at me? Maybe he hadn't heard me or thought it was a joke. Cough. Cough. Your Highness, Alex is. Shen was interrupted halfway as Hex spoke while standing up from his seat. I heard it loud and clear. Alex is dead, but are you sure about that? Have you seen his corpse or do you have something to prove it? Hex asked as he stared at Shen. Your Highness, there had been an ongoing battle with Arkham. Alex was holding them off at the terror of Renvier. The battle was suddenly interrupted by third-party interference. The nobles and other troops fled upon receiving the signal. My sources, after inquiring about them, went to the side of the battle and nothing was left. Even Arkham's forces were annihilated and no corpses were left behind. From the traces of the attack left behind, we deduced that it was the work of the supreme-ranking individual, and it also seems that some demons have been seen in the surrounding area. Hex's body stiffened upon hearing the details. His expression distorted. All of Arkham's forces were wiped out and you even noticed demons, Hex said with a strange look. Shen was puzzled for a moment as he noticed Hex's blank gaze. It meant that Hex was focusing on the wrong things again. Instead of being curious about the supreme rank, he was more interested in the Arkham soldiers and some lesser demons. Yes, according to reports, Arkham's forces were led by the second Prince of Arkham Noah Ark, and he had led 240,000 forces to take over the Western Territory. I don't know how many of them were killed by Alex and his men, but I'm sure the Supreme Rank's attack decimated most of them. All of Renvier's terror had been dispelled by their attack, and the earthquakes even spread towards the Western Territory and could be felt from a distance of 500 kilometers. I had alerted many kingdoms. After that, we saw a group of demons but we naturally took care of them. They seemed to be some minor scouts. The more Hex listened, the worse his expression became. His mood was a mess as he felt that something had gone wrong. Because what was the other party's objective? To eliminate Arkham's soldiers or to eliminate Kinley's forces or both? And the appearance of demons couldn't be overlooked. Shen makes a detailed report and sends it to the Imperial Father. Also, tell him that the channels hadn't been working due to enemy interference and that we didn't know anything about the Arkham Empire. Silence the witness if there is any. Do it quickly. If you don't do something quickly, a third party might take advantage of this opportunity. Hex ordered Shen and gave him a series of orders. And above all, don't forget to report on the demons. Don't underestimate those vulgar creatures. Shen noted all of this down in the back of his mind. Now go. Shen hesitated for a moment and asked, Your Highness, since Alex is dead, can I take care of the other one? No. Shen's request was met with a resounding rejection. You and your obsessions. We can't waste time on that. After we achieve our goals, we can put that trifle aside. Shen nodded with a sad look and left. Hex walked to the bookshelf after Shen left, pulled out a book, and took out a piece of paper from it. After pondering for a moment, he wrote something on it. He walked to the window and threw it away. Swish. A shadow flashed by and the paper suddenly disappeared. It seems I've been tricked, Hex said with a strange smile. Chapter 403, We Were Wrong. The news that the soldiers of Arkham and Kinley had been wiped out soon spread like wildfire. It was like a slap in the face to the rulers of the two empires. Kinley was in chaos. Forces were deployed in quick succession, one after the other. The kingdoms of the West were called upon to support troops. But something horrible and shocking happened as soon as they arrived at the scene. The entire Western Front was covered in a miasma that was destroying the land. It was horrible, but not to the point of having to retreat. The miasma itself was not the problem but rather the beings guarding the place. No one knew how or when it occurred, but the unimaginable had happened. Beyond the destroyed mountains, the arch-enemy of peace drew a line of defense. The demons. It was too surprising even for them, as there was no report of a demonic invasion. The intelligence department does not know how the demons appeared in large numbers and masked their presence. They could accept Arkham infiltrating since it was right next to them, but the demons who were at the northern end were able to appear here. It only meant one thing. The ridge where the eastern part of Arkham and the northern part of Demonland meet had fallen into the hands of the demons. Until now the demons only posed a threat to Arkham, but now it seems that Arkham was not the only one in danger because the demon had already occupied the western fort. The blow was hard for Kingsley, but it was too severe for Arkham. They waged war and shed blood and sweat, but when it was time to eat the cake, it was snatched away by the demon, shaking all of its foundations. Just like Kingsley, Arkham was seething with anger. Similar events occurred in Arkham. The entire Arkham Empire became wild and alert. Unlike the loss of Kingsley, the losses suffered by Arkham were quite severe to the point that even the commoners came out to occupy the streets and surrounded the homes of the nobles in their region. They were armed with their everyday tools. Everything that was sharp and could be cut was collected. Riots and coups could be seen all over Arkham. Those who heard the news were shocked, wondering what was going on. Was it a rebellion or a protest? Will there be a civil war to overthrow the reign of the current emperor? Fortunately, it was neither. This was not a protest against the ruler. This was the call of war. They wanted to fight and take revenge. Because the rising sun of the empire that they all loved dearly had set. Their beloved second prince was killed. Any commoner knew how much effort the second prince had made to help them. He even walked the roads and distributed food, asked about their well-being, and took care of their problems. But the feeling of not being able to see the man who was like a god to them broke their hearts. None of them were unaware of the recent situation. Each of them knew exactly the situation of the empire that was slowly falling into ruins. And since they were already going down, they set out to go down with the other side. Their fate would be worse than today if the demon occupied their land. There would be no more freedom for them. They would all become slaves or die cruelly under the hands of the demon. Instead of waiting for death to come for them, they would sacrifice their lives for revenge. While riots and protests were taking place all over Arkham, inside the palace, a man who seemed to have aged greatly looked out of the palace with an inexplicable look. His eyes were tired and restless. Seeing his people like this warmed his heart. These are the people who due to the current situation were unable to fill their stomachs, but just by hearing of your death, they put aside all their grievances and prepared to sacrifice their lives for you. Is this the fate of my empire? Have we reached such a point that ordinary men have to arm themselves to fight? Have we become so miserable? His questions were heavy and sad. He didn't know why he asked such stupid questions, but the questions were still questions because there was no one to answer him and he didn't know the answer. Looking outside for a moment, he spoke with a sigh. It seems that 600 years of this empire's existence would fall under my reign. I have betrayed the ancestors who worked with all their hearts and gave their all for this empire. Our downfall seemed predetermined. His eyes seemed to fill with tears as he thought about the recent situation. He wanted to rest. He wanted to let go of that burden that was oppressing him. In his 80-year life, he had lost many things. His wife, his son, and now it seems he will lose his empire. Yes, the man resting on the sofa was none other than the emperor himself. It's not over yet, he heard the frail voice and looked at the man who was staring at the ceiling with a hollow gaze. His body was riddled with wounds. We were wrong. The answer we were looking for wasn't wrong, but we were looking for it in the wrong way. But that's okay. I've already found the answer. We will survive and thrive, because I'm sure he's still alive, the man said with a smile, trying to cheer up the old man. I hope what you said comes true, because we have neither the time nor the resources to avert the crisis. The man chuckled as he heard the emperor's words and looked outside. Resources, huh? We have more than we can imagine. It's just that we never thought of any other options. We have something that could shake the whole world. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 404, A Sincere Letter. In contrast to the outside world, which was filled with chaos, Leonhardt was seen to be at peace on the outside. The people of Leonhardt only know that their lord had been posted to some military region, but they did not know exactly where their lord had been. They could not see their king as often as others, but every time he made his appearance it was a time of celebration for the entire kingdom. All of them were aware of the recent changes, but none of them knew that their king was at the center of the storm. Kingsley has so far not released the list of the deceased, so it was still quiet before the bomb was dropped. Although the common people did not know about it, the upper echelon of the kingdom did, and the information fell upon them like a thunderbolt. The entire Leonhardt was on high alert, and under the peace, Preparations for war were being made. The soldiers and those in a higher military position knew their lord very well. They knew that their king would not fight a losing battle. There was no trace of sadness, and rather all of them were burning with fighting spirit and knew that once their king returned, all the warriors would be asked to march out and kill the enemies. Inside the palace. Knock. 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 Someone knocked on the large wooden door. The knocker waited for a while, but there was no response. The door slowly opened and two immaculately dressed women entered. The two women looked around with restless gazes. It was a huge study room filled with all kinds of books, scriptures, and tons of papers. In the center was an ivory table filled with books, and at one end a woman with auburn hair seemed to be taking a nap. Her eyes looked wet as if she had been crying, and her face looked haggard and tired. A soft red carpet covered the floor, and a cozy fire crackled in the fireplace. Another woman sat in a chair in front of a mahogany desk, and there were several papers scattered across the desk. The woman who was leaning back in the chair stared at the fireplace as she tightly gripped her sword. Her face was filled with hatred and rage. She looked like she wanted to pick a fight with someone, but was holding back. One of the women who entered cleared her throat and coughed a little. Cough. Cough. The woman sleeping on the table was startled and woke up abruptly, causing the stacks of books placed beside her to fall on top of her. Ouch, Catherine, you've become clumsy and careless. Look at you, it hasn't even been 5 days and you've already lost too much weight. Catherine rubbed her eyes and looked at the soft voice and spoke with a glare. Athena, stop teasing me. I'm not in the mood for your cute jokes. I agree with her, Christina said as she stood up and held her sword. Athena closed her lips for a moment and then with a pouting expression walked in and took her place on a couch. After sitting down, everyone looked at Yvonne, who was standing at the door with a confused expression. What? Do you need a special invitation now? Catherine asked in an annoyed tone. Yvonne shook her head and hurriedly walked over and sat beside Athena. Ignore her. She's gone crazy, Athena said with a mocking smile. I haven't lost anything. It's just that it's been a long time since I came here, so I feel strange. By the way, is this Alex's study? Yvonne asked. The other three nodded. It looked more like a research lab than a study room, Yvonne commented. Catherine ignored Yvonne's comment and asked Athena, were you able to dig up anything? Athena nodded and began to say, the church is still discussing the matter of the Western Front. We generally maintain neutrality. The church has no responsibility to deal with demons, but it must clean up the miasma. But it can't act while demons occupy the place. What a headache, Catherine muttered. Christina stared at Yvonne and asked, Yvonne, did you manage to obtain any information? Yes. And Christina, your suspicion was correct. Shen interfered during the war and delayed the arrival of reinforcements, and not only that, he is trying to get rid of the survivors who managed to get out of that place. Christina's expression distorted and she muttered through gritted teeth, that scum, he won't stop until he gets what he wants. The atmosphere fell silent for a moment. Christina couldn't hold back her killing intent, causing the temperature in the room to drop slightly. Everyone knew the history of hatred between Christina and Shen. The silence lasted for a moment and was finally broken by Athena. I've tried sensing Alex's life force. He seems to be fine now. Athena's words shocked everyone. You can even sense his life force? Catherine and Yvonne asked at the same time with surprised expressions. Since the six of them were bound by the contract, they could tell whether the other was alive or not. The death of any of them would cause a severe reaction and leave them in prolonged weakness. So, everyone was certain that Alex and Rhea were alive, but they didn't know their condition until now. How did you meet Athena? Athena's lips curved into a smile and she spoke with a sense of superiority. My heart is so deeply connected to him that what he feels is transmitted to me. Athena's words caused everyone to stare at her with their mouths agape. Athena noticed a hint of jealousy in her eyes and burst into laughter. After laughing a bit, her expression turned serious. It was the oracle of the goddess Rebecca. He's fine and breathing, but he's in poor condition and Rhea's condition is a little worse. Athena spoke with a serious expression. Seeing her expression, everyone stepped back a little and had a thought. She and Alex were definitely made for each other. How could their expressions change in an instant? Catherine took a deep breath to calm herself down. We must prepare for her return. Once she is declared dead, Shen will try to make things difficult for her when he returns. Yvonne, try to protect the people who escaped. We need them to bear witness in case Shen plays dirty. As for something else, it seems we need to step forward. Come forward. How? Yvonne asked curiously. Catherine tilted her gaze and stared at the bookshelves. I remembered the time before Alex left. She said that each book contains the knowledge and techniques that could bring about a catastrophe in the world, and that she was still reluctant to circulate it, and at that time Leonhardt was too weak to protect himself. But now everything has changed. He said that if a situation arises where he goes missing or is seemingly killed, take the books off the shelves and start implementing them into the training of the recruits. Does it mean that we can now make the monoheart public? Athena asked. Alex had taught them about the monoheart. As all of them were born with the goddess' divine blessing, they all found that they had a natural monoheart. Although the monoheart comes with a great long-term boost, it takes too much time and resources to create. Therefore, it may not be an option for everyone, as many may even be unable to form it. Shall we let them make the decisions? Also, Alex had created a technique that could help someone awaken make a monoheart, but its efficiency would be lower than those who had made monohearts before awakening. Christina, it seems like you'll be busy now, Catherine said as she looked at Christina with an inexplicable expression. Believe in me, with Alex's guidance, I will turn each of them into a weapon capable of completely destroying their enemy, Christina said with an indifferent expression. Applause. 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 Athena encouraged Christina and gave her a thumbs up. Also, Alex had left me a letter and told me to open it if anything bad happened, Yvonne said and pulled out a letter under everyone's curious gaze. Catherine and Christina walked over to Yvonne, who unfolded the letter and read it out loud. To my wives, if you're reading this, I'm sure I may be overlooking or may have found something I failed to address, but relax, girls, you know your husband is a divine being, so who the hell can kill him? Narcissist, selfish, Yvonne and Catherine respectively muttered to Athena and Christina to make them laugh softly. Well, enough of the fun for now. My disappearance means that Kinley might have lost the war, so the situation would be hopeless. Christina, I want to increase the requirement of soldiers and train them from the basics using the books I have. Also, spread sportsmanship and other techniques I've come up with. Yvonne, I want you to take over my business. My death would surely cause some to look for trouble and destroy the business or try to create a workshop similar to ours. So, please take care of them. Athena, I'm sure you'll be able to feel the connection and inform my wives about my situation, which is the most important thing to me. I don't want any of you to feel heartbroken and anxious thinking that I'm dead. Lastly, Catherine, there's no flaw in your work. I always feel guilty for leaving my work to you, and you might be exhausted from overwork, but please listen to this, Catherine, you need to reach the transcendent rank. You are the only epic rank among the group. You can reach it, but you lack the will, so I want you to stop working on the paperwork and hand it over to others and focus completely on training. I want you to reach the transcendent rank before I return, no matter what. Lastly, I want to convey that I love each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart, and I can't bear to be away from you. Just one day away from you makes me miserable. I wish to stay and relax in your arms, but there are some things I need to do, so please forgive me for not being able to share your burden at this difficult time. After the news of my disappearance was announced, all of you are having a hard time, but I believe in all of you. Women like you don't need to rely on others. Everyone shines in their own way. Stay strong and live well until I return. Yvonne folded the letter after reading it out loud and took a deep breath. Reading the contents of the letter made them feel a sense of loss, and the feelings that had been stored in their hearts began to burst out, making them feel uneasy. Even though they could pretend that they were okay, they all truly missed him from the bottom of their hearts, and everyone hoped that he was okay. Chapter 405, The Death of an Overlord. The world trembled. The sky seemed to break and fall to the ground. The air itself burned like fire surrounding everything. Millions of warriors stood motionless on the ground holding their breath. They looked tired and haggard, but their eyes burned with fighting spirit. It was a memorable sight, a sight of countless soldiers waiting for the moment of the moment. The warriors fighting hand to hand calmly waited for their turn, while those attacking from afar prepared to launch the attack on the enemy. Arrows loaded with magic spells and various spells ready to be cast were aimed at the sky. Above the sky, a pair of dark eyes stared at them and seemed to drag them into the abyss. The blue sky was blocked by a sea of dark figures. It seemed like there was no end to their number. Meager ants, your numbers are too small to even offer resistance. The hopes of humanity collapsed at the thunderous voice and were at their lowest point. Destruction awaits them. Their existence was in danger. There were humans, demons, orcs, dragons, elves and dwarves, and along with them, there was also the presence of any creature that had even a little bit of intelligence in them. A rigid tension filled the atmosphere as everyone stared at the held figure. With each passing second, his end seemed to be drawing ever closer. However, at that moment a loud sound that made everyone shudder returned. Bath! 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 Everyone's eyes widened as they heard a pulsating sound that was similar to the sound of the world's heartbeat. And then, the gazes of the warriors who were staring intently at the enemy fell upon the back of the man who appeared out of nowhere. Seeing his broad back, they calmed down. The aura surrounding him seemed normal, but they knew it was inscrutable. His heartbeat was enough to shake the entire world, sending out strong waves of mana that even affected the enemy covering the sky, but strangely enough it didn't affect the warriors on the ground, instead calming them down. His presence alone seemed to oppress the enemy. As the man took a step, a huge door appeared behind them, destroying an invisible wall that separated the two worlds from the other side, and soon certain things that defied common sense came to light in endless amounts. Mana gushed out from the other side and filled the world. The mana that gushed out from the other side was light and warm. Not only did it comfort them, but it also replenished their strength. The things had many pairs of white wings on their backs and were covered in bright white armor. These creatures completely obscured the sky in no time. Everyone who saw the scene was completely dumbfounded by the number of creatures descending endlessly. What? How many are there? How can each of them possess such strength? There are too many of them. Are they our friends or enemies? Gasps and screams filled with despair erupted from here and there. The scene was absolutely shocking, but it was not the end of it all. The ground beneath them was covered with dark mana that floated around them. They held on in shock and stared at the man's back, from which a shadow that seemed to engulf the entire world stretched out. As confusion and terror began to sweep across the entire battlefield, from the man's shadow, large dark-colored monsters that looked like demons sprang forth. Breathing stopped for a moment and everyone became restless. They panicked and began to move. Magic spells ready to be cast shone brightly in their hands, and bowstrings pointed downwards were tightly drawn. The warriors raised their weapons and shields to their chins in preparation for close combat. But before they could move and deploy their concentrated firepower, a loud shout was heard. Stop! They are allies. The man's will was carried by the mana and was transmitted to everyone. Allies. These are our allies. Where the hell were you when we were reduced to such a state? Everyone thought the same thing. The man raised his head and pointed at the swarm of enemies. I hope you are prepared to face what is coming. As soon as the man's words fell, 5 glowing pillars erupted from his back. The man who was about to speak suddenly chuckled and tilted his head. His gaze fell on an individual in the crowd whose existence seemed fragile. The individual seemed to be between dream and reality. Go now. The individual heard the man's words and suddenly opened his eyes to find himself under a thatched roof supported by tree trunks. I. He tried to speak but couldn't, because his body, which was healthy a moment ago, suddenly atrophied and turned into a thin body. His body began to shrink and his face, full of vitality, began to show signs of wrinkles. Hugs began to resonate around him. Many elves were by his side and shouted in panic upon seeing his state. The man whose body began to wither spoke in a soft voice. Immediately call the king, the queen, and the high priestess. One of the elves shouted after hearing the elf's words. There was panic all around and soon the royals arrived. The elven king's eyes widened when he saw the man's current state and his expression turned pale. Overlord Legolas. He shouted and squatted down beside him. What did you see that took away most of your life? My death was already near, your highness. I still remember when you became king. He coughed loudly and spoke again. With trembling lips, he muttered. The world will soon face an unprecedented catastrophe. If our kind has to survive, we must cast aside our pack. False bravado would lead us to doom. Remember it well, your highness. Sir, what have you witnessed? What kind of catastrophe? Weren't you searching for a way to revive the world tree? Then why? The world tree's problem would be solved by him. He will appear soon, to protect us from the end, and we have to sup. With a heavy breath, the man finally lost his life. The entire elven nation began to mourn for the elf who used to be known as the Emperor who sees the destiny, Legolas, who not only led the elves but the entire world during the time of crisis in the past. Chapter 406, Seed of Darkness. Rai walked through the dimly lit granite hallway. Every step he took seemed to take him hundreds of meters. After a few seconds, Rai came before a wooden door which he quickly opened and stepped out. He came to a passage that was a kilometer long and 20 meters high. On the walls were powerful weapons and ornaments, and dark flags hung from each column. In the center was a giant round table with a few chairs around it. Rai went through another door and appeared in a place filled with magical equipment. There was also a table on top with many chairs on which several individual outfits were placed. Waking forward with an indifferent look, he took a seat. "Good evening, sir." The two individuals wearing suspicious clothing stood up. Rai gave them a glance and spoke. "As you may know, we were able to form a point at the narrow intersection of Kinley and Arkham. The demons have done their work and now it is our time to finish the task. We don't know when they will attack the place. That's why, before the other party makes a move, according to the treaty, it was time for us to make a move. We must spread the miasma in a sneaky and secret manner like we do, and destroy their lands. The more we destroy their lands, the greater the benefit our God will receive." Rai, after explaining the content of his mission, raised his hand towards the place filled with magical equipment. A small wooden box floated towards him. He placed it in the center of the table before everyone's astonished gaze. Those looking at the small box could feel a strong power emanating from it, enough to give them chills. "What is this, sir?" Moss asked as he wiped away his sweat. "This is the seed of darkness. A seed created by compressing and purifying dark mana and miasma. There is no need to store them in a suitable container to spread miasma anymore. Just plant them in the ground, and within a few hours, the effect will be noticeable." "What is the difference between the two methods?" Rachel asked. "Seeing miasma simply corrupts the pure mana of this world and has a limit. Think of it as a container filled with foul gas. When opened and spread, it can fill an entire room, a mansion, but it cannot fill an entire city and has its limit. But that is not the case with this one," Rai said with a smile. Rai's works attracted the attention of both women. The seed of darkness not only corrupts pure mana, but also turns it into darkness mana. "What is miasma?" "It's nothing more than dark mana that we spread to its limit, but with this, we were able to spread the miasma over a wide area. Although it also had its limit, it's still more than enough for now." "Listen carefully," Rai said in a stern tone. "We can put it on the ground or on some corpse. But due to its nature, it could turn the corpse into an undead, and if any living creature were to touch it, its soul would be contaminated and it would become a mutation between a creature of darkness and light. Now let's get to the main point," Rai said after noticing everyone's curious gaze. "This is very valuable and we don't have much of it here. Split into two teams, one would be sent to Kinley and the other to Arkham. Send the strongest one to Kinley as they're preparing for the counterattack. You can also find some kids who want to adopt our god," Rai said with a crooked smile. "Now I also want one of you to deliver these pills to the people. They were delivered to us by them and we have to oversee things personally." Rai spoke and discussed a few other things. 2 boxes appeared and 2 women held them with wide eyes. The women took the box and walked towards the door and walked through it, disappearing from Rai's sight. Seeing their figure disappear, Rai waved his hand and muttered, "Have a good hunt." "Thank you." "What a joke." The 2 individuals wearing shadowy cloth underwent a transformation that shook the world. Their dark clothes were replaced by dark, shiny armor covered in various runes that gave an uncomfortable feeling of unease. Darkness began to envelop them and soon their figure appeared completely. What a joke. Their image flashed and they appeared in the hall filled with many individuals. All of them had pointed ears and dark tan abilities. Moss and Rachel appeared from the darkness. "We greet the heiress of the Azure clan and the Dark clan. We have been given the mission to spread the power of our god and let you witness the true strength of our god," Moss shouted. Silence. The entire hall fell silent, but soon loud and overwhelming applause erupted, echoing throughout the venue. Soon darkness began to appear around them and everyone disappeared from sight. Soon, many elves appeared from the underground passage and with a loud explosion they all shot forward. Their speed was quite fast, and since the dark elves had great skills in hiding and being assassins, they made sure to cover their tracks from the outside. The sun was shining brightly outside, but to some, their vision seemed to be covered by endless darkness. Inside a cave formed by the overlapping of huge rocks that stretched out to form a raised ridge, several people were lying unconscious. The wind seemed stagnant and the smell inside the cave was nauseating, putrid and damp, or something like leather tanned over a flame. The smell came from the pile of men lying unconscious. A deathly silence reigned in the narrow space. The bodies were piled up in one place and none of them moved an inch. The scene was akin to that of a group of half-dead people piled up in one place to die. The thick, nauseating smell spread outside and naturally, many beasts caught a whiff of the delicious meat. And many even approached the place to take a look, but none moved inside or stepped foot within a certain radius of the place. The reason? Because their senses alerted them of a threat, they entered. Furthermore, before them lay the corpses of strong beasts rotting in the open air. At the top was the oppression of a top-level predator. The predator seemed to have marked its territory, which no beast dared to cross. Still, certain brave beasts tried to jump on the corpse, but when they approached the opening, something invisible hit them and they fell to the ground with a loud noise, causing the other beast to flee in fear. In the corner of the cave, a man rested against the wall while holding a woman in his arms so tightly that it seemed like the man was afraid that the woman in his arms would disappear if he left her. Of all those who were there, only he was conscious. Inside the partially dark place, he raised his head and his gaze emanated a chill filled with cruelty to the point of shedding tears of blood as he gritted his teeth in rage. Chapter 407, After the Disaster. The scene of the disaster he went through had been playing in Alex's mind like a flashback on loop every second since he woke up. They were crushed like ants with no chance to retreat. He was in shock. He was helpless. He was afraid. He wasn't afraid of death or pain. He was afraid of the deaths of those around him. Their well-being was his responsibility. He was thinking of a reason why the guy attacked him and tried to kill him. Because he hadn't messed with an unknown force or offended any big shots. The first figure was a creature of darkness, but the supreme rank wasn't. Although its silhouette was vague, he was sure that the person wasn't a creature of darkness or any human. Ridaya's body had already been severely damaged, but when the attack hit them, Ridaya covered Alex with shadows and tried to protect him, causing him to receive severe burns. Alex also had burnt skin on his face, but he was in better condition than his men and Ridaya. As his eyes looked around at everything with a scrutinizing gaze, the dark ceiling above his head was replaced by the bright sky where two figures stood and launched the attack. Hallucination? Yes, he had been hallucinating quite frequently lately, but he hadn't made any effort to snap out of it. Because he wanted to rewatch that moment over and over again and engrave it into his heart so he would never forget it. Alex had already sensed the level of the supreme ranked Wisp's breath attack. He strengthened the golden barrier and activated another blessing. Lady Luck blessing. He had never used this skill until now because he never needed luck to win a battle. But today his survival was at stake. Although his chances of surviving were in the single digits, these blessings increased his chances by even one. He wanted to bet on it. Alex had fought against the Arkham troops with 2,000 soldiers, and of them, only 600 were left alive after the clash. During the last stand, besides his 100 men, 200 more accompanied him while the rest were too weak to participate. Alex used all his remaining mana to cast a wide area teleportation spell so he could teleport everyone to safety. The golden barrier created by him could not stop the Supreme Rank's attack for even a second. In the moment of desperation to increase the speed of teleportation, Alex finally managed to reach the legendary rank while his life was in crisis. His advancement was not stable due to the situation. Ridaya unleashed all of her power at that moment and enveloped the others in a shadow-like domain. Although it managed to buy some time, it was ultimately shattered. The blow woke Ridaya up, and she felt that out of hopelessness, she had wrapped herself around Alex. The attack reached them, but before it could finish them off, Alex's teleportation finally worked. It seemed like an eternity, but in reality all of this happens in a matter of seconds. They were lucky enough to survive to see the next day, but sadly it wasn't all of them. Out of the 300 people surrounding Alex, only 120 were able to teleport away while the bodies of the rest were annihilated before the spell worked. Although it was a minuscule second, the warrior's aura protected them from dying while others who were unable to mask themselves died. Of the 120, 70 were Alex's men while the rest belonged to the defense line. Alex at his current stage could only teleport 50 people, but due to the effort he put in, as soon as the spell worked, his vision went blank. A splitting headache overwhelmed him, and his body was racked with severe pain from having cast long-distance teleportation. The spell could teleport him along with others within a distance of 1,000 kilometers. After fainting when he opened his eyes, he saw Ridaya's charred body in his arms along with men who were still breathing. The moment he saw her gaze, he felt the greatest despair of his life. The tingling sensation of rage that seemed to consume his heart with misery was nothing compared to the despondency he felt when he was abused by the goddess of war. Alex's body was so bad that he couldn't even heal spells. His unsteady advance knocked him down, and after waking up, he tried to settle her condition. He simply poured mana into Ridaya's exhausted body and let her recover. Ridaya's clothes were torn and her back was partially bare. Alex changed her clothes and cleaned her up after gathering all his strength. After 6 days of care, Riai's condition was stable while his men seemed to have fainted from intense fatigue. Alex cast a sleeping spell on them all and let them sleep until he could use a healing spell. He woke up on the second day and hadn't blinked for a second since. He sensed many powerful beasts walking towards this place due to the smell of burnt flesh and blood, but all of them were killed by Alex. He didn't move physically, but as soon as he reached a legendary rank, he received one of the biggest surprises of his life. Name: Alex von Leon Hertz. Species: Transcended human rank, legendary rank potential, superior level. 1 EXP. 0 HP. 279/588 mana. 423/2110 stamina. 316 agility. 312 endurance. 298 vitality. 294 magic. 302 plus 100, additional 100 due to Monocore, Soul Force, cannot be measured stat points. 0. He had unlocked Soul Force, which can only be unlocked when one reaches the mythic rank, but Alex had unlocked it at the legendary rank. Previously, his soul was unable to leave his body to launch a soul attack as his body was weak and could only attack when the other side initiated it, but now he can use a wisp of his soul to break out and engage in a soul battle. Mages train their mind and soul to become stronger, and when they reach mythic rank, they show their true potential, while warriors mainly train their souls after reaching mythic ranks as they focus mainly on physical strength. That is why mages are considered superior to warriors, as most of them lose in case of soul battle. And Alex was using that soul force to kill the approaching beasts. He had even killed a nearby legendary ranked beast with his soul attack, but it proved fatal to his condition as his body was under immense stress. Alex's soul was too powerful for his body to accommodate, so he needed to restrain himself. He didn't know where he was or why there were so many strong beasts lurking around, because in Kinley, after the terror of Ranvier, there was no large desert. Alex put the question to the back of his mind and asked the system. System, can't I use the healing spell on them now? How much longer will I have to see them in this state? Alex asked in an annoyed tone. Chapter 408, After the Disaster 2. Host, the only reason you were able to stay conscious and recover quickly was thanks to the blessings and the Monocore. Attempting a mass teleportation and a long-distance one on top of that is suicidal at your current level. You could have died without the Monocore. Besides, 120 was the limit. Others died because you were unable to carry them. The system's mechanical voice echoed in his head, and he bit his lips with a sense of loss. It was as if he had betrayed his men. Host, stop accusing yourself. You know it wasn't your fault. I know it still hurts me to think of those people who followed me here and I couldn't see them again, and I don't know why my recovery rate seems to be slow. The little mana you've recovered was spent on killing the beast outside, otherwise you would have healed enough to be able to walk by now, and as you know the mana in this place isn't that great, I suggest you go find some food now. It's a pity that the meat outside is rotten, Alex sighed after listening to the systems. It wasn't that he wasn't recovering, but rather the killing the legendary ranked beast cost him a great deal of mana, and in his current condition, it took a bigger toll on him than it should have. His 5 elements breathing technique didn't seem to be working properly. It wasn't that the technique didn't work, but rather that the surrounding mana in that place didn't seem to be enough. Still, Alex was glad that he had teleported right below the cave. This might be due to the blessing of the goddess Fortuna. After snuggling up with Raya for a while, Alex put her down on the ground after preparing soft vines for her to lie down comfortably. Raya's eyelashes fluttered as Alex released her. Her expression changed and one felt like she had woken up from a nightmare. The temperature inside the cave was cold, so Alex pulled up some vines and burned them. It should last me a while until I get firewood. Alex stroked Raya's hair and after getting up, he walked out of the cave to take a look. Before the entrance of the cave, Alex saw the corpses of several beasts he had killed. The corpses had started to decompose and the foul smell had attracted many flies and insects. Alex snapped his fingers and the corpses burned and the gale blew, removing the smell. Alex placed an earthen barrier around the place. After 6 days, he had finally recovered about 40% of his strength. His men and Raya had already recovered enough to wake up, but Alex cast a sleeping spell on them. He wants them to rest properly and wake up after using a healing spell. He also opened the mono map so that he could be notified if any beasts lurked in the place and be able to get rid of them immediately. Alex took a deep breath and observed the surroundings. The trees were not as dense as the terror of Ranvier Desert. The vegetation cover was not very thick and the soil was clay and loamy. Alex concluded that he might be on the outskirts of a forest, and somewhere there might be a path leading to human inhabitants. After wandering around and stretching, Alex began the hunt. He now needs food with high nutrient content. He had not eaten for many days. If he had meat from high-rank beasts full of mana, perhaps he would already be in his best condition. Alex climbed a tree and jumped from one to another with agile movements. Alex saw an Angolan antler from afar. It was a transcendent rank beast. After seeing it, the thought he had shaken off earlier came to his mind. I don't understand one thing. If this isn't a vast desert, how come there are so many high-level beasts here? Only beasts up to master rank should be found and rarely an epic rank. I even encountered a legendary rank coming for us near the cave. The level of the beasts is far above what this place could handle, Alex muttered and kept the thought in the back of his mind. First and foremost, he has to kill and collect enough meat. His stomach was already growling with hunger. And second, he needs to recover quickly. Since he used Lady Luck's blessing, his days should be filled with misfortune, but since Alex was locked in one place, he didn't find much. The Angolan antler was eating its own prey. They have earth elements with which they form pointed structures and attack others or use their horns to hurt them. They do not have sharp teeth and do not bite. Their horns extend from their body, forming a branch and extending for a length of 5 feet. Alex went to a stable branch to jump, but unfortunately, it broke and Alex lost his balance. Alex grabbed the tree tightly, causing a gap to form. Shut up. Taking a deep breath, he placed his feet on the tree and kicked it to jump. Alex described a long arc to gain more distance. He traveled almost 30 meters with a single jump. About 8 meters away, Alex's momentum began to slow down. A ball of mana appeared in his hand that extended to form a long stick, and at one end of the stick appeared a sharp, pointy needle-like tip. Alex, who was right above Angolan Antler's head, collapsed on top of it. Spire Antler noticed a movement and saw a small shadow on the ground and tried to move away, but Ale noticed his movement and raised his spear to throw it. Alex, holding the ice spear, pulled his right arm to the point that his muscle bulged and threw it towards Angolan Antler. Bang! A pointed structure of earth appeared before the antler, who tried to block the ice spear. The needle, which was made of rock, and the ice spear should have broken into pieces, but the spear went through the needle and hit the antler. As a last resort, the antler raised its large horns to block. Bang! The antler's horns were hit by the spear. Alex heard some scratches and thuds from below, and further below him, the antler was shaking as the spear passed through the gap between the horns and scratched the neck. The antler was still alive as it slammed its head into the ground, the spear made of ice finally breaking. Alex's body shot towards it with a huge hammer made of ice. Even though Spire Antler was in pain, it twisted its body and kicked the ice hammer away. Boom! The hammer shattered into pieces, forming a dense fog that covered its vision. The fog suddenly tore apart, and through the gap, a human fist covered in a reddish aura shot out and hit its head. Bang! The tip of the horns broke, and a cracking sound was heard as Antler's body crashed into the ground. Funny. Alex clicked his tongue as he failed to kill it with a punch. He didn't have the strength to launch another soul attack, and so far he had only recovered 40% of his power. The antler hit the ground with its snout and, standing up, jumped towards Alex, trying to hide him with its horns. Chapter 409.1, Bad Luck All Around. Alex raised both his hands and decided to face the blow head-on. Although he was in a weakened state, he was still a legendary ranker in the end. When someone crossed the transcendent rank barrier, their stat points would increase by 60, while Alex's points would increase by 100. Bang! Alex's entire body shuddered and his upper body shook due to the collision. Contrary to his expectations, Alex's entire body was dragged back a few meters, and the massive antlers with their incalculable weight crashed into him. Alex tried to put more strength into his legs and support his body so that he wouldn't be dragged back. Dark marks appeared beneath his feet as his body was dragged back. Alex, who mustered all his strength to stand up and not retreat, slipped when his feet passed through a muddy area, causing him to groan in pain. Alex's momentum collapsed, helping Antler lift Alex up via the horns Alex was holding. Alex's body jerked as he was thrown upwards by Antler's horns, and before he could react, Antler slammed his horns down and knocked Alex off his feet. Bang! Alex's body was thrown like a kite cut from the string and rolled across the ground. Damn bad luck! Alex screamed and wiped the blood from his lips. He didn't have much time to complain as the Angolan antler was already chasing him. Wow! Alex stomped the ground and his body slammed into a tree. He would be a fool not to take advantage of the natural terrain. As he tried to land on a branch, his body was jolted by the tail of an iron sparrow that shot out from the branch. The iron sparrow's tail was also in transcendent range, and its spikes were aimed straight at Alex, trying to pierce him. Alex used a flight spell to change its trajectory and avoided it and landed 3 trees away. Alex saw a nest on the tree and understood the reason for the bird's attack. It wanted to save its nest, and as soon as Alex moved away, it flew back to its nest while keeping an eye on Alex. It didn't occur to Alex to provoke it. His bad luck was already making it difficult for him to kill the antler. And his weakened stats and low mana reserves added more salt to his wound. Buzz! Alex's attention was drawn to the antler that had him pinned, and many needles made of dirt flew towards him. Alex moved again, leaping into the air and taking the necessary precautions before landing on the tree branches. The needles accurately pierced the last spot he passed a moment ago. The antler continued to attack him with the needles, making it difficult for him to get close. Alex kept dodging. He was trying to kill him using as little mana as possible because he didn't know what troubles could await him, but his unlucky day was ruining the opening where he could have killed him. Every time Alex is close to landing a blow, he either slips or trips on an obstacle, which is a misfortune for a warrior. Alex swallowed his complaint and condensed the gusts of wind and threw them everywhere around the antler. The Angolan antler tried to tackle with his needles, but they burst upon contact, and to Antler's surprise, plumes of dust rose around him after his needles hit the gust of wind. Soon, he was surrounded by a heavy screen of smoke and dust, much to his disgust, and as he screamed trying to intimidate his enemy, a shower of ice spears rained down on him. Bang! 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 As the dust cleared, the antlered figure appeared with countless ice spears piercing his skin, and he was pinned down by ice spears from all sides. He tried to push his way through and shatter him into ice pieces, but Alex landed on his back with a sort of rock and ice and stabbed it deep into his neck. Da! Alex screamed, thrusting his mana-covered handmade sword through his neck, causing Antler to thrash and causing Alex to slip again, but this time, Antler's head was decapitated with his fall. I will never use that damned blessing from Lady Luck, Alex spat in disgust. He could stomp on transcendent rank beasts like an ant before. Now he had a career of 1,000 demons. If he ever used that skill on the battlefield, he was afraid he would be killed for slipping somewhere. Should I hunt more? Alex wondered as he looked at the destruction around him and saw the iron sparrow's tail staring back at him. Alex shook his head and quickly threw Antler's corpse to the left. Alex entered the cave and threw the corpse to the side, and after gathering firewood, he lit a fire. Looking at the roasted meat, Alex gulped and took a nimble bite. Ha! Alex moaned in pleasure as mana flowed through his body, warming him up. Sure enough, consuming the beast of a higher level is the best way to recover, Alex said. With each bite, Alex could feel the rejuvenating sensation coursing through his body. I've wasted pounds of precious meat, he said regretfully. Alex recovered a bit and started hunting again. Alex continued to hunt and consume them. After stocking up on enough supplies and regaining half of his strength, he was finally ready to wake others for the 8 days. Rita's eyebrows twitched, and as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Alex in front of her, looking at her with an anxious gaze. He was alive and breathing. Alex, she screamed in panic, but before her mind could become unstable, Alex silenced her with a passionate kiss. His tongue invaded her insides. Rita murmured, but Alex's invasion silenced her and she felt a little suffocated, but she didn't resist but instead enjoyed Alex's sweetness. After enjoying a moment of warmth, Alex pulled away. Shhh, it's alright. Calm down and take a deep breath. Alex tried to calm her down, but Rita couldn't stop the tears from flowing. Chapter 409.2, Waking Up After a Horrible Experience. Rita's eyes became moist at the sight of Alex safe and sound, and she wrapped her hands around him and sobbed as she rested her head on his broad shoulder as she thought about the mess they suffered a few days ago. Alex caressed her back, and when she stopped crying, he wiped her tears away and said, "Here, eat something. You'll feel better." Rita looked at the spot Alex pointed at and saw roasted meat placed on the leaves. Nearby was a fire burning, providing them with some warmth. Rita nodded and nibbled on some meat as Alex stroked her head. "It's been hard on you and the others, but we're okay. That's what matters in the end." Rita nodded and enjoyed the warmth and rested her head on his chest. Alex snuggled up a bit, and after enjoying his company for a while, he raised his hand. A flickering golden light enveloped everyone. The entire cave was illuminated by the golden sparkles, and it even illuminated the darkness outside the place. The brows of the people in the cave furrowed and the expressions on their faces became distorted. As if awakening from a horrible dream, many suddenly cried out. Ah ha ha, sigh, each of them was breathing heavily. Sweat was running down their backs. A nauseating smell assailed them. Am I in hell and heaven? Max muttered as he stared up at the dark ceiling. His vision was a whirlwind and his mind was in a mess. Where are we? They squealed like a pig that seemed to have been slaughtered a moment ago only to find out the next moment that it was alive. The horrifying scene of disaster appeared before their eyes which made their bodies tremble in fear. All of you are neither in hell nor heaven? You're all alive. The words calmed them down but soon the bucket of cold water fell upon them. Out of all of you here, I was only able to save this many of you. They all looked at the source of the sound and found Alex staring at them with sunken eyes. As they calmed down, they recalled the horrifying experience they had gone through. They never wanted to suffer something like that again. Before the impact, they all felt as if their existence was going to be erased. They were nothing more than ants that could have been crushed by that guy. Their minds seemed to shut down for an instant and their consciousness seemed to erode, but the pain their body experienced could not be described with mere words. It was already enough for them to think clearly after going through that kind of experience. What happened to the others? Are they all dead? It was Johnson who broke the silence. But his question brought about another wave of deathly silence. The reality of losing so many people in the blink of an eye hit everyone hard. It was a terrible nightmare. The supreme rancor wasn't even present there physically, and it was just a will of his that he was still able to eradicate everyone. It could be considered a blessing for them to be alive, and for the man who made the impossible possible. They owe their lives to this man. Just thinking about it made his entire body tremble in fear. For the first time, Alex was speechless. His feelings were in chaos. Everything inside him seemed to be tangled up. 10,000 soldiers followed my will. If I hadn't decided to defend and fight with Arkham, all of them could have escaped to Western Territory and wouldn't have suffered such a calamity. That anonymous guy came from my head in the Arkham forces, but all of you were caught in the middle. It was my mistake, Alex said with a lifeless look. The surviving soldiers looked at Alex and wanted to calm him down, but none of them could speak after seeing that cold gaze. Alex closed his eyes to gather his mind and opened them. His eyes became sharp and flickered with a cold glint. This sin I will carry in my heart. I will find that being. No, I will find that entire organization and hunt down every single one of them. Once I reach that level, I swear on my name that I will hunt down every single piece of trash found in that organization. I will hunt them down to the ends of the world. If they are dead, I will dig up their corpses and desecrate them. If there are no corpses left, I will hunt down their souls. No matter if their souls are in hell or heaven, I will hunt them down and torture them. I know you may be skeptical about it, but once I reach that level, I could even pull their souls out of hell and heaven and then I would show them the true meaning of cruelty, Alex said as he clenched his fist tightly. His body was covered in a murderous glow. The murderous intent only loomed around him, but it was extremely dense to the point that everyone could see millions of corpses behind Alex. The small protruding stone that Alex was sitting on seemed to be a mountain of corpses, and Alex's eyes seemed to carry the anger of the millions of beings who only wanted to break out of the ocean of blood and purge the world in a bloodbath. Alex, control your blood intent. The thick, bloody aura disappeared from Alex in the blink of an eye, snapping everyone out of their thoughts. Sorry, I seem to have gotten lost for a moment, Alex said with an embarrassed smile. My lord, we will also become stronger and take revenge on behalf of our dead brothers, Max said as he clenched his fist. My lord, where is this place? Are we near the Western Territory in Kinley or somewhere else? Ian asked with a confused expression. It seems like we are on the outskirts of somewhere. I have waited for all of you to wake up so we can head out together. Then, before we leave here, you all can eat whatever you want. I have hunted many animals during this period. Growl. Hungry voices rise from everyone's stomachs as soon as they hear the name of the food. All of them, gulping, pounced on the meat greedily. I have never felt so alive, Max said as he chewed on the meat. Alex felt that even that amount of meat might not be enough for them, but fortunately, this was enough. After everyone had had their fill and finally got some energy, Alex decided it was time to pack up. They rested for the night and then in the early morning, they said goodbye to the place they had been inhabiting for the past 8 days. Exiting the cave, the group walked around looking for any signs of humans. After walking for 6 hours following the direction of the sunrise, Alex finally sensed a small fluctuation of mana. There are 3 humans nearby. Follow me quickly. Crackle. 2 pieces of the hunted leg were hung over the fire. 3 men sat in a circle and salivated looking at the meat. Rustle. Rustle. Suddenly they heard the rustling of leaves and one of them muttered, "The wind seems to be quite strong. Very strong wind, my ass. What the hell are you saying? There's no wind blowing today. You've been hungry for a long time and you're hallucinating." "Yeah, it could be," Glenn said while scratching his head. The sound of the rustling increased, which alerted everyone. "Hey, is there any beast around?" Ken spoke with a cautious expression. "Shit. It seems that the smell has attracted a wild beast. What should we do? Shall we run away and leave this? If it's strong, we'll surely die," Glenn said. "Shut up." Ken and Roni shouted at the same time. "Food is scarce nowadays due to the destruction of the land. Our village has been blessed by luck, and that is why there has been an increase in the number of beasts." Ken spoke and looked in the direction of the sound. "Let's take a look first," Ken suggested. 3 of them stood up and looked at the bushes. The rustling sounds became closer and their breathing became labored. Finally, their eyes caught the sight of a person with a burly body holding a broken axe, with his chest bare with bloodstains. All the hair on their bodies stood up in fright and they cried out, "Oh God! It's the bandits!" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 410, We're Not in Kingley. Max's jaw dropped wide and his feelings were hurt after being claimed as a bandit as soon as the other side saw him. "We are not bandits, nor do we do such heinous acts." Hearing the rough and heavy voice, the 3 of them screamed in terror. The sight reflected in their eyes was that of a burly man whose body was stained with blood. The man's upper armor was torn apart, revealing his muscular chest riddled with scars and burns. His body emanated an unfathomable aura that made their legs go soft. He smelled of rotting and putrid flesh, as if this guy hadn't breathed for months. His presence was enough to scare the hell out of those who weren't even awake. Wrinkle, whisper. More noises were heard and soon many people appeared in their sight. All of them were armed with a gun, and each of them wore a torn vest and seemed to be prepared for today's hunt. His lips had curved into a crooked smile after finding them. Ian patted Max on the shoulder and indicated that he would take care of things from there. "Look, Max, you scared them. Let me take care of this," Ian muttered and took a step towards the trio, who were backing away in fear with every step. "Hello, friends. You don't have to be afraid of us, we are all knights, but due to an unfortunate situation, we have been trapped here. Could you please show us the way out, knight?" "Gee. You look like a knight," the trio thought after seeing Ian's smile, which they found quite threatening. The men before seemed rude, but this one seems to be both suspicious and cunning at the same time, and seems to enjoy toying with people. A terrible imagination clouded their minds. "Run for your lives," Ken shouted and ran off. Glenn and Roni also followed him. Ian's expression stiffened as he watched them run away in fear. "PFTT, at least they didn't run away upon seeing me." "You scared the shit out of them," Max said while laughing maniacally. "Stop laughing and catch them." Max and Ian heard the order from behind and their gaze changed, and they chased after the men. Johnson, who was at the back with Alex, found the situation quite funny and looked at Alex with strange eyes. Alex frowned and said, "Why are you looking at me like that? Except for me and Raya, all of you look like mountain bandits. If I were an ordinary man, I would have run away in fear of my life as well." Johnson and everyone's lips twitched upon hearing Alex's words. "Did you have to say that to our faces straight?" Raya chuckled at the exchange and looked at everyone. "Surely if any common man sees them, he'll mistake their group for bandits. You two are wearing clean clothes, unlike us who are wearing the same broken armor and the same huge underwear. We don't have any spare clothes like you do." As Johnson and Alex argued, loud howls and cries could be heard all over the place. And soon 3 bodies fall to the ground with a loud thud. Ian and Max dropped the trio to the ground in front of Alex. Alex saw their trembling bodies and sighed. "You 3, please look at my and my wife's faces. Do the 2 of us look like bandits?" The 3 of them were about to nod their heads but stopped midway when they saw Alex and Rida's faces, causing their mouths to drop wide. "We are nobles. Nobles don't stoop so low and do this kind of thing. I swear on my noble lineage that I won't harm or kill you, my lord. Didn't you once say that nobles and bandits are opposite sides of the same coin?" Max spoke with a confused expression. Silence. Everyone gulped after hearing Max's words and the trio began to tremble. A thick vein stood out on Alex's forehead. He had taught his men many things, but out of all his words, this jerk had only remembered this kind of shit. Alex gave a signal and a horde of men pounced on Max and dragged him away. Ha ha ha. He's mentally incapacitated and sometimes suffers from psychological attacks. Then just ignore him, will you? The three of them nodded their heads vigorously as they had no other choice left. Friends, could you please tell me if there's any village or town nearby and what place is this? The three of them hesitated and looked at each other as they struggled internally to push each other to speak first. Ken finally gave in and opened his lips. We're near the village of Crestford, which is about 8 kilometers from here. Our village mainly relies on hunting and farming for food, so we often come to Crestford Forest to hunt. Alex nodded and asked his next question. Can you tell me what happened with the war between Arkham and Kinley? The eyes of the three men flashed for a moment. Glenn, who had remained silent for a moment, spoke up after mustering up his courage. Are you the survivors of that war? The atmosphere suddenly turned cold out of nowhere, causing Glenn to frown as he felt that he had asked something he shouldn't have. Alex's relaxed expression turned stern. Yes, he spoke with a stern expression. Ken gulped and explained, we lost the war against Kinley. Our second prince had died. We don't know much about Kinley's side, but as far as we know, a third party had interfered. How did you know so many things? Shouldn't this matter be kept hidden? Johnson asked with a frown. Are you kidding me? The entire empire is in mourning now due to His Highness's death and has been plunged into chaos. What? Johnson muttered in confusion and looked at Alex and said, when did the second prince die? Johnson's words stopped when he saw Alex's gloomy mood while others' faces turned pale. As he repeated the words, he realized something and his eyes widened. It can't be, he spoke in a shaky tone. Alex looked up and spoke in a weak voice, we're not in Kinley, but in Arkham. His weak words echoed in everyone's ears like a thunderstorm. Chapter 411, Towards the Next Mission. Alex politely asked the trio to lead them towards his village. Although it was a request, from his perspective it was nothing more than a request. The words seemed like menacing threats in the presence of everyone. But what could they do? They had no choice but to head towards the village of Crestford. The landscape around them changed and Alex's eyes caught the side of a human settlement from afar. The streaks of green vegetation disappeared and a large expanse of cleared land appeared. But it was a very different scene than he expected. The vast farmlands that stretched out to the horizon looked dry and bleak. There were plants growing there, but the produce didn't seem like much. A low-quality soil yields around 12 to 17 quintals per acre, while a good quality soil yields between 22 and 34. 1 quintal equals 100 kilograms. The farmlands of Leonhardt yield 24 quintals of rice or other crops per acre. But the lands before him seemed to yield less than quintals per acre. Is the soil really bad here? Alex asked Ken. No, we used to get 19 quintals per acre, but because of the drought and many other things, the crop yields have gone down. We have tried adding fertilizers and many other things, but nothing seems to work. What do you mean by other things? Should you ask the village chief for more information? Ken replied. How do you all live if the harvests are so meager? Max asked. Didn't I say that we mainly do hunting? Crestford Forest is full of small animals and beasts. We are also good at breeding and fishing. Hunting provides us with a small supplement. We are lucky to have the support of the forest god. The situation is worse in other situations, Ronnie explained. Please take us to the village chief first, Alex said. As Alex's men approached the village, they could see some movements there. Alex's footsteps stopped and his men followed him when he saw the villagers who were working in the open space running away after seeing them. Some hid in their house and locked the door while others seemed to be running away. It seems that they mistake us for bandits again, Ria muttered. Alex looked at his men, who lowered their heads with nervous expressions, and then looked at Ken and the other two with a pleading look. I should inform the village chief and put an end to the misunderstanding. Until then, please wait here, Ken spoke and entered the village. After a while, Ken was accompanied by a few men who were leading an old man walking towards them. The old man looked at Alex with a scrutinizing gaze. There was a hint of tiredness in his eyes. He watched Alex for a moment and asked, I heard from Ken that you were the soldiers who had been attacked due to a mission. Yes, Alex lied with a blank expression. Alex had already prepared himself for the probing questions. He was shocked when he learned that he was in Arkham. This was his first long-range teleportation, but that didn't mean he would mess up like a rookie. Therefore, The only plausible reason he was teleported to Arkham was because of the blessings of the goddess Fortuna. His luck, or rather, his destiny, had brought him here to accomplish something. Ken informed him that he was 600 kilometers away from the Arkham border, and 200 kilometers away from there, military checkpoints could start to be seen. Can you describe the mission? It's not that I can't trust you, but doing the mission in Crestford Forest sounds a little strange. This village is under my control, and I can't allow any anonymous person to come and go as they please without a proper identity. Especially a group of people like you guys. I understand your concerns. I can't divulge anything about the mission, but we were sent here to examine something. You see, this place shouldn't house any dangerous beasts, but we've found a transcendent ranked and legendary ranked beast here that doesn't belong here. We were asked to hunt them down for the safety of the nearby village and try to find the reason behind this. Alex didn't know the place, but his experience in the wild played a vital role. The village chief's expression hardened upon hearing Alex's words. So, even all of you think it's weird, Alex explained his made-up story about his team having been fighting off the beasts for days to keep the nearby villagers safe. Sir, I'm Rex. Nice to meet you, Alex said. I'm Henry. Nice to meet you all, soldiers, but before we can talk further, I think you all should wash up properly, Henry suggested. He was finding it difficult to even stay close to them. Alex smiled awkwardly and stepped back. Under Henry's direction, baths were prepared for Alex's men along with clean clothes. Raya separated the village women. The villagers were rather simple and the village women were rather open. They pulled Raya away from the unruly man and helped her wash up and were shocked to see her beauty and smooth, milky skin in contrast to theirs. Although her appearance was haggard, her body smelled of fragrance. The women of the village praised her endlessly and were happy to mingle with noble women, which was a rare occurrence for them. Raya's fine skin couldn't bear their praise and she simply shook her head shyly. While Alex and his men finally settled in the village, far away from the village of Crestford a certain group was busy doing their work. The area was dark and rotten, giving one a gloomy and sinister feeling. Thick, dark fumes hung in the air, which when inhaled, acted like poison and caused beasts to die or go mad. 5 shadows appeared and walked around the place. The atmosphere and dark fumes didn't seem to affect them, rather it increased their vigor. This place seems to be quite appropriate, one of them said as he stepped forward. The tree swayed and branches began to reach out towards one. She looked at him and spoke with a seductive smile. Bad boy, it's not for you. The branches that were reaching out towards him suddenly withered and then the tree turned into a husk. Let's unfold it, she said and took out a box. The woman opened a box and a dark aura radiated all over the place covering the entire land in darkness. Lady Moss, it seems like it's too strong. Moss nodded with a smile and looked at the 5 who were trembling due to being suppressed by the aura radiated by the dark mass of something. How did you like this? This is the sacred seed that will help us bring about the kingdom of our God very soon. With the help of this thing, the world will know the existence of our God and will soon worship him, Moss muttered and placed down the dark mass of a substance from the ground. As soon as it hit the ground, it began to burn with a dark flame, and a dark miasma spread out all around like a turbulent flow of water. We're done here, you 3 stay here and protect this place. Lore, you're coming with me. We have some things to do. Chapter 412, I will find a way. On the outskirts of Arkham, a man walked through the place and came before a small, cozy thatched roof house. The atmosphere was really warm and peaceful. The people were sweet and innocent and treated them as if they were their own, which touched his heart. Crack! The wooden door opened and he was greeted by an old man sitting near the fireplace. Henry creaked his collar and said, "Did you dye your hair?" Ailed's hair was blood red due to being stained with blood, but Henry could discern that it was blonde now that he saw that he had long, black hair. "No, this is my original hair color," Alex replied, pulling out a stool from the side where he was sitting next to Henry. "I had changed my color for the mission. I'm a fallen aristocrat, so I need to hide my identity." His signature hair color can be identified by some as only that of the Kinley royalty, who had golden blonde hair that shone and made him stand out from the rest. So, for safety, Alex dyed his hair black and changed his name. And as for his background, he doesn't think there was anyone who could know about him. "It's been a while, Sir Henry. I'm glad to see you after washing up. You look quite well." Alex raised his head and chuckled. "Do you like the layout of our humble village?" "Yes, it's quite comfortable." "Sir Henry, how much do you know about the recent affairs?" Alex didn't know how much substantial information he could gather from here, but he needed to gather as much as possible. He was in a foreign country and it wasn't a formal visit. Henry raised his eyebrows and asked in a gloomy voice, "How much did you know?" "I only know that our Arkham kingdom was lost. I don't know much about the details, as my team and I were lying in the pool during the current crisis." Henry realized that Alex might have spoken with a smile, as if he was telling a joke, but a genuine sadness and unquenchable anger hidden beneath the surface could be heard if one paid closer attention. "Look, I don't know if the information I'm giving you is correct or not. I heard a lot about it from mercenaries who visited this place." "Mercenaries?" "Yes. As you see, there are tens of strong beasts approaching. We ask them to kill whoever possesses the danger." "Isn't it too costly?" Henry laughed and spoke. "We don't hire them. We usually pass the information to the Hunters Guild or the Mercenary Guild. Beasts have much more utility than one might think. Every part of their body can be used to craft exotic things. In case there are any beasts that don't have much value, we offer some price." "No, back to your question, please keep it a secret so that the other villagers don't get scared and feel uncomfortable." Alex nodded and his expression turned grim as Henry began to explain. After Arkham and Kinley, the forces were defeated by third-party interference. The demon appeared and took over the borders on both sides. They are quickly trying to increase their reach from both sides, so many believe that higher-ranking demons interfered and broke the scale of the war. Alex smacked his lips wryly with a strange expression upon hearing the old man's words. His eyes lost their color and he forgot what to say because they defied his attempt to understand what was happening through logic. First of all, how did the demons appear out of nowhere? Once defeated, the demons took control. It was ridiculous to say that they appeared out of nowhere. Since the warp gate could be destroyed by the man's attacks, then there were two possibilities. Either the demons were somewhere hiding their presence, or they had built a warp gate with the presence of that higher being. Still, he couldn't expect this to be the result. And that wasn't all. It seems he has a bigger problem. The border had been occupied by a demon, so all routes to Kinley could have been cut off. How on earth would he get back home now? The demons need to be defeated for that, and for that Kinley or Arkham need to attack, but since the demons are still occupying, it means Kinley hasn't made this move. Alex clenched his fist, feeling distressed about the matter. He was worried about his kingdom and his wives. How are they? What are they doing now? What if they made the wrong move thinking I had been killed, or that I was now mourning? I wish they could somehow know that I was alive. He knew Athena could sense it. Henry looked at the young man head-on and patted him on the shoulder. "Young man, I know you feel frustrated and angry because we lost. What matters is not the result but a feeling of giving your best. As long as there are people like you, who gnash their teeth and rise again to face the calamity, our Arkham will not collapse." Although there was a misunderstanding, Alex felt Henry's genuine concern and worry. Alex tried to smile and held the old wrinkled and calloused hand and muttered, "Yes, we will not fall so easily. If there is no way forward, we will just head there to fight our way through. Arkham will surely rise again." Before he fought for his nation and did the right thing, but now that he was here, Alex felt that he must do something to help them, no matter how small his contribution was. Arkham cannot fall into demons' hands. Noah's death might make the situation worse. He cannot do anything about it, but there are certain things he can do. This is to get rid of the miasma and help Arkham rise again. He should think of ways to help them from the shadows while keeping his identity a secret. And secondly, he needs to find a way to communicate with his wives. Upon entering the military outpost, he was not allowed to carry a communication channel and cannot use others to communicate as the channels had to be tuned to the desired frequency. Although I can already feel my head tearing up thinking about this whole mess, I'm sure I can find a way. Chapter 413, Will we have a new sister soon? The broken blade of the short sword struck deeply into the thorny anteater. It was 3 meters long and its body was covered with sharp thorns that could shoot up to 100 meters. It screeched and shot at the huge thorns on its skin. Bang! Whistle! Tearing through the ear, the sharp edge of the thorns shot forward with incredible speed. Tang! Tang! Some thorns were deflected while others pierced through the weapons and racks, blasting people to pieces, but soon a bubble appeared and enveloped them, protecting them from harm. Boom! Another sword shot was like a missile and pierced its neck accurately. Turning around and struggling for the last time, it finally gave up its life. Alex, who was standing on a tree, stared at the thorny anteater after it died. It was only at the epic rank but could deal more damage than a transcendent rank. Alex and his men stayed in the village for a while. They decided to make it back to the top before leaving, but that didn't mean they were going to be lazy. The villagers' grace couldn't be ignored, so Alex ordered his men to hunt as many beasts as possible and deliver them to the village chief so he could distribute the meat and sell the other things above. He heard that the large anteater spines were sold for 5 silver coins each, and 5 silver coins were enough to feed a family for a month. While hunting all these creatures, Alex was also doing his own research. He tested the soil and found that its vitality had been slowly and steadily losing. Perhaps the miasma running rampant in Arkham has seeped deep into the soil and is slowly taking away fertility. Fortunately, Alex was able to catch it and purified the land, and the effect was quite evident. "My lord," Alex heard Johnson's voice from afar and signaled for him to speak. "We can't keep going like this. Our weapons won't last long. It's better to call them pieces of scrap rather than weapons," Max added upon seeing him, but cringed after noticing everyone's angry gaze. "We're going to take damage if we continue like this," Johnson muttered. Alex nodded and said, "I understand. Everyone has recovered, so it's time to go." Alex and his men entered the village and looked for Henry and handed him the game. The villagers applauded them and treated them with respect. They have been in a very good mood thanks to Alex and his men for bringing a lot of food during this difficult period. Alex looked for Henry to say goodbye. Henry took their hands and shook them gently. "When you entered the village, I was still tired of you, but I had no choice but to allow you in since we can't fight against all of you, but it seems I've made the right decision. I can't blame you. The safety of others was in your hands." Alex laughed. After exchanging some pleasantries, Alex and his men headed out as the villagers bid them farewell for the last time. The women of the village were a little reluctant to depart, but they still bid her farewell with happy faces. Alex looked at his men and spoke. "Do you remember the blueprints? We will split up from now on and register with the Adventure Guild to create a fake identity to help us during our stay. We will meet at the Moon City in 2 days." A few kilometers away from Crestford Village, Alex and his men split up before entering Crestford Town. Alex gave me some money to buy weapons for them. Alex planned to obtain a license from the Adventure Guild. His men would also obtain a license and begin to go on quests and also gather information along the way. The Adventure Guild is an international organization that has several branches in the cities of each empire. His kingdom also had an Adventure Guild that was opened a year ago, and he was the one who participated in the opening ceremony and cut the ribbons. But now thinking about this has brought tears to his eyes. If Alex wants to keep up to date in a new territory that he has no presence in, he needs to utilize the Adventure Guild and information resources. One can enter the Adventure Guild library, sell monsters, go on quests with rewards, and search for suitable adventures. In addition, it can also serve as identification in case of being captured. Since their group was huge, Alex divided them into groups and sent them to other nearby cities to register. Too many people belonging to the same group obtaining licenses in the same place may arouse some suspicion. If someone were to find out that he was from Kinley, he would have to waste his time playing hide and seek again. Alex along with Raya entered the Adventure Guild in Rossavor City. "Hello, how can I help you?" Ale stared at the receptionist, who was a red-haired lady, making him think of Yvonne for a moment. Alex spoke as he stood in front of the reception counter. "My wife and I want to register at the Adventure Guild and get a license," Alex said, pulling Raya to his side. "Do you already have a license, or is this your first time here at the Adventure Guild?" the lady asked with suspicious eyes. She could sense the experienced eyes of a hunter on Alex due to her honed instinct and thought that perhaps he had lost his license and wanted to issue it again. Alex scratched his cheek and said with a smile, "This is our first time. We both hunted in our village. After gaining enough experience, we finally got permission from the elders to go out and seek our fortune." The lady nodded and said, "In that case, please follow me this way." Alex bowed his head and followed the conversation. Alex and Ryle were led into the waiting room. "Please take a seat and wait for a moment," the lady spoke and left. As Alex's gaze followed her as she walked away, he heard a faint coughing sound from behind. There was an inexplicable smile on Ryle's face as she spoke. "My lord, it seems you are interested in that lady. After returning, should I inform the others that a 6th sister will be coming soon?" Chapter 414, My wife is an SS rank adventurer. Alex gulped as she saw the dangerous glint in his eyes. "You're wrong, Raya. I got a little nostalgic seeing her. She looks a bit like Yvonne," Alex said with a sad expression. "It doesn't look the same as Yvonne's hair, though." Raya's expression relaxed a little as she saw Alex's nostalgic eyes. I wish we could have our organization here to help us, Alex muttered. We've managed to secure our position in Kinley after a lot of hard work. Expanding our network across the world will be quite difficult unless we have resources similar to Lockhart's, Rhea muttered. Alex stuttered a little but soon her eyes sparkled brightly. Shit. How did I forget? There should be a branch of the Lockhart Merchant Group in Arkham. The trade routes may be blocked, but communication would still work. Rhea's eyes lit up and a beautiful smile appeared on her face, making it hard for Alex not to hug her. Cough. Cough. Please show some restraint. A middle-aged man walked in and this caused both Rhea and Alex to part ways. He looked quite imposing with a large scar on his face. I'm Paul and I'm in charge of the Adventure Center here. The man who introduced himself as Paul extended his right hand and asked for a handshake. Alex grabbed it with his right hand and felt a crushing force grab his hand. Alex looked at his hand and watched the man blink innocently. Paul, why are you tickling me? Paul's expression stiffened and he withdrew his hands. He used this method to test the toughness of newbies, and surprisingly this guy's hands are very tough. Paul was an epic rank at the age of 49 and was the branch manager of the Adventure Guild. Full of vitality and vigor, but seems a little naive. That was the initial impression Paul had of Alex. Paul knows the psychology of people who want to become adventurers and treats them accordingly. Paul introduced himself and asked Alex and Rhea about their family, their background, and the names of their parents. There is no power in the guild to determine whether this was a lie or not, and everything they said was recorded. However, the reason for asking this question was to notice something strange. Unless one is a skilled liar and can hide their expression, they will be easily caught. I will now stop asking you questions and measure your power level. Paul asked them to place their hands on the orb as he took out a piece of paper and began writing down the information. Rex, 21 years old, peak disciple rank. Priya, 21 years old, early disciple rank. Alex and Rhea had lowered their level and were acting like rookies who didn't know the way of the world. Seeing their loving gazes, Paul sighed a little and said, "You two seem to be a perfect match. The road ahead of you may test you, but don't give up so easily. Now do you see that doll over there? Attack him with everything you've got." Rhea's eyes widened and she felt as if that guy was asking Alex to blow up that building, causing her back to be drenched in sweat. She was afraid that Alex might destroy everything, so she decided to make the first move. Rhea grabbed a dagger and lunged at the puppet, stabbing it multiple times, causing many small holes to appear on it. Alright. Next, Alex took out a spear from the weapon rack and stood in front of the puppet. The puppet seemed to be made of a material that could withstand a maximum epic rank attack. Alex took a deep breath and regulated her breathing. She pushed her left foot forward and bent her body backward, shifting her center of weight as she built up strength. Rhea almost bit her nails in anxiety as she felt that Alex was going to blow up the building. Like a spring, her body shot forward and stabbed her spear in. Swish! A crimson light flashed by and a hole appeared on the puppet's chest. Rhea's expression paled as a soft stream appeared in the room. Unable to find anything wrong, Pablo watched and analyzed them. After pondering for a moment, he spoke. Rex, I'll give you an E, and Priya, you'll get an F grade. Silence. E. Alex's expression turned rotten as if he had stepped in shit. The license grade was expanded from G to S. G was mainly given to newbies who had just awakened, and S to legendary ranks and above. Even kingdoms and empires had to treat them seriously. With an E rank, he couldn't do much, and raising the grade would need a lot of time. At the very least, he could move around safely in Arkham. Don't be discouraged, boy. Your skill is enough to get a D or C rank, but you need to have some achievement to get it. Since you're new, I can only give you this for now. After receiving some encouragement, Alex wanted to say something, but Rhea pulled him, trying to get as far away as possible. Strange, why was the girl in such a hurry? Paul muttered and thought maybe the two had other plans. Paul walked towards the puppet with a hole in its chest, but frowned when he noticed a small hole appeared in the wall. Did the attack penetrate all the way here? Paul muttered and tapped the hole. Tap. It was just a small knock, and at first there was nothing wrong, but soon the wall started to vibrate. What's going on? Paul shouted, and his question was answered with the bricks of the wall falling on him. Trash. A larger section of the wall collapsed and rubble spread everywhere. Paul, what the hell was that noise? With a loud scream, the red-haired woman entered, and her eyes widened at the sight of the destruction. From the piles of dust appeared a man covered in dust and coughed violently. Paul. Honey, I haven't done anything, please believe me. The man who behaved like a calm person now turned into a scaredy cat in front of women. Meanwhile, the person who prepared the incident walked normally down the street. Believe me, Raya, I controlled my power. You shouldn't have used the man. Your mana must have invaded the wall and broken it. I may consider it compensation for giving me a low rank. If he was in Kinley, he would be scared shitless just by looking at me. Noticing Alex's unsightly expression, Raya thought for a moment and spoke. My lord, if you need anything we can use the licenses I have made in Kinley. Alex's footsteps stopped and she asked, licenses? Raya nodded and said, I have all the ETS grade licenses under my responsibility. I even had an SS rank license under the name of the Shadow Queen. Alex felt her heart skip a beat upon hearing Raya's words and almost fell back. Who didn't tell me that before? You didn't ask, Raya said with a cute pout that made Alex faint in disbelief. It seems like I should write a novel. My wife is an SS rank adventurer, Alex said with a frustrated expression. Chapter 415, Gathering Materials Through Murder. Somewhere near the desert. The surroundings were cold and icy. Winter was on its way, and in the morning, a light drizzle accompanied by heavy rain would fall. Running across the frozen ground, a man walked through the dark fog. The surroundings become colder as Alex takes a step forward. Alex jumped onto a tree in a single swift movement. The fog covered his vision so he couldn't get a good view of his surroundings. Alex raised his hand and twisted his finger. The wind began to condense and dance in his hand, and then Alex fired a compressed wind shot. Swish! The fog screen in front of Alex dissipated for a moment, and Alex's eyes caught the sight of the prey. Bang! The branch Alex was standing on exploded due to his jump, and as he landed on another tree, he jumped again. Shortly after Alex got his license, he began going on missions to go hunting in the wild. He moved along the border areas and hunted in the wilderness, and tried to clear away the miasma he encountered. With a flight spell, he could cover 1,000 kilometers in a day, which extended his range as he moved back and forth across the border. Along the way he also examined the changes in the environment. He had many soldiers on the way, and after obtaining the license from the Adventure Guild, he began to gather information. Asking about them, Alex learned that Arkham is planning to close down the excess wilderness in the Eastern Territory due to the rapid spread of the miasma, which also halted Alex's operation. Alex wanted to search the perimeter of the borders, but it was heavily guarded, and there were even many legendary ranks there. So for now, he was just hunting beasts, especially the beasts that had been infected and escaped here. Alex finally saw a dark azure bear tearing everything apart. It's been a long time since I fought a bear. Azure bears were limited to transcendent rank, but the one before him was legendary rank and gave off a dark and sinister aura. The azure bear's eyes narrowed as it raised its head and stared at Alex. The two of them stared at each other for several seconds. Crrrr. After the bear saw that Alex wasn't moving, it started to growl and vibration was sent everywhere. Alex looked at it with a confused expression. Alex could see that the bear was contaminated by miasma, which raised its power and was in a berserker state. Still, he could feel a hint of fear at the sight of Alex. He felt threatened by Alex's presence and was analyzing his chances of defeating Alex. Alex had discovered that the miasma was the enhanced version of the dark mist that Raid and Amidin used for the experiment. And the antidote he had discovered there was completely useless against them. And that made the person lose his mind. But the bear seemed to be fine, and unfortunately he was not the only one. He had killed many beasts and was affected by the miasma, but since they were at a lower level, he thought that it had not affected them much. But now he knew he was wrong. What a joke. Alex jumped to the side, and a spear made of ice whizzed past Alex at an incredible speed. Bang! Bang! The spears started flying towards Alex and he dodged them by jumping from place to place. The spears pierced through the tree trunk and hit the tree behind it. Another spear shot forward. Alex didn't dodge it but instead hit the spear with all his strength. Alex's arm shook a little but the spear cut straight through and pierced Alex, splitting him into two halves. Alex pressed his foot into the ground and shot forward with all his speed. The bear roared with aggression as another spear, exuding a dense aura, materialized and shot straight towards Alex. Alex's body exploded towards the bear with great momentum, and he found it difficult to dodge the attack, so he covered his other hand with the aura and slammed it against the sharp tip of the spear. The spear explodes into pieces and a frozen mass of dust, and Alex passes through the dust, finding the bear that appears before him and slashing its gnarled claws at Alex. Boom! The entire forest shook with a shockwave and Alex's figure was sent flying backwards. Alex was able to parry the attack with his sword, but was thrown far away due to the result. Alex, who was in the air, was cut down by the claws of an azure bear coming towards him. Alex took advantage of the flight to change his trajectory. Boom, 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 boom. Claw marks erupted behind him and pulverized everything in the path. Alex twisted his body in the air and landed sideways on the tree trunk and bent his knees like a spring. And then, bang! As if a spring had been released, Alex kicked off the trunk and launched himself at the bear once again. The entire tree shook and the trunk flew out. The azure bear senses the danger Alex poses and, aiming for him, opens its snout wide. Alex saw a powerful dark-colored beam shoot towards him, decimating everything in its path. Swish! The aura on Alex's body exploded and a crimson aura enveloped his sword, forming layer upon layer. Alex grabbed his sword and with all his momentum stabbed forward. Piercing thrust, brilliant. A sound resembling paper being torn away could be heard, and a highly destructive beam of light shot towards Alex, stopped and split into two. The azure bear's eyes widened at the side, and before he could react, gentle winds blew past him and something brushed past his neck. Thud. The massive body fell to the ground after taking its final breath. Alex landed beside it and clicked his tongue. The core can't be sold, which cuts the price in half. I need to gather as much valuable materials as possible. Alex searched for the source of the miasma but couldn't find anything and soon spotted the fences from afar. There weren't any strong beasts to hunt, so with a frustrated expression, he picked up the corpse and flew towards the Moon City where his crew was present. Chapter 416, Ridia's Fear. Alex cleaned himself up before entering Lunar City. Lunar City was 290 kilometers away from Crestford City and was famous for its crime rate. Lunar City was the base of the Skull Gang that ruled the place and looted the people. For any tourist or adventurer, this place was a big no. But for Alex, it was the city of fortune. Alex headed straight towards the high-rise building that was a stark contrast to the other rundown building, as it was the base of the Skull Gang. Hello, Mr. Rex. Please take a look at the fresh bread I baked today, Mr. Rex, here's a gift for you. Please say hello to your wife for me. I'll pass on your words, Aunt Gita, Uncle Don. Thank you for the bread. Thank you, Aunt May. Alex chuckled and returned the greeting as his empty hands had been filled with all sorts of things. Alex shook his head as he watched the warm and cheerful laughter of the townspeople. All of them were terrified of the Skull Gang until Alex took matters into his own hands. He only wanted to plunder the gang and use its members to help out during his stay, but the one who benefited the most was none other than these common people. These people quickly grew fond of the lovely couple Alex and Ridia and tried to help them settle down. There was no mayor in this town, and the people even wanted Alex to be the mayor here, but Alex refused. The noble in charge of this town would soon hear the news and look for trouble, but in the face of the massive turmoil in Arkham, he seemed to be busy. Alex didn't want to wait for him to come here and would personally deal with him when he left. Alex heard a loud shout and soon saw 6 burly people rushing towards him with serious expressions. They stood in front of Alex with a bright glow that made it seem like a bloody fight was coming. But their expressions suddenly changed and they all bowed their heads and looked at him with puppy dog eyes. What the hell are you looking at? Taking the Lord's things away? How can you let him carry all of this? Lord, please don't carry his arms. Let this servant carry the things, the men muttered and took the things away from Alex. Not bad. Not bad, you're slowly learning to be a civilized person, Alex muttered and patted them. It's all a blessing to you, sir. You've shown us the light and guided our misguided and unfortunate souls to the right path. Alex suppressed his urge to laugh and looked at Malcolm. It was the same man who was mocking him 4 days ago and then beaten like a dog by Alex. Russell. Alex entered the house and walked towards the basement where there was a small training center. He saw Ridia meditating with her legs crossed. Her power was increasing at such a fast rate that he couldn't keep up. She was fine at first, but when Alex took her to hunt the creature of darkness, she began to rapidly absorb the dark mana. She had barely controlled the power of lust and now the other power was taking its toll. So, she had been trying to calm herself down and familiarize herself with her power. Ridia slowly opened her eyes and asked with a smile. What did you buy today? Alex took out a corpse from her special ring and put it in front of Ridia. Ridia raised her eyebrows as she pointed at the corpse with trembling hands. A legendary ranked azure bear. Alex nodded and leaned against the wall, crossing her hands over her chest. The situation in Arkham is getting worse. The higher-ups seem to be thinking of something. Ridia, it seems we need to get the main branch of Lockhart quickly. Alex said with a serious expression. Alex had a token that granted him absolute status similar to Yvonne. But the problem was that only a high-ranking member of Lockhart's merchant group could identify the token as it was highly confidential. If he saw the token, those who weren't in the know might think it was a fabrication. The main branch of the Lockhart branch groups was located in the capital of Arkham, Arlington City. In order to enter the periphery, Alex needs to show a reason. So, while searching for clues of miasma, Alex killed many high-rank beasts and stored the precious materials in the beast. A legendary ranked corpse could sell for 1,000-3,000 depending on the beast. Rhea was analyzing the corpse with great interest and suddenly felt a chill as she saw dark-colored mana seeping into it. Alex, this is what you were talking about, Rhea spoke as she shuddered backwards. Alex walked towards Rhea and pulled her into his arms as he stroked her hair. Yes, as the pure mana of this beast had been tainted and turned into dark mana, you were able to feel the flow of mana. This is a good thing, Rhea. Alex tried to assure Aura as he saw her fearful expression. It's an indication that you're slowly learning to master your powers. I don't know if it's a good thing. I'm afraid of losing myself and harming you or others. I feel like my powers will take over me and control me. I thought it was the power of lust that I had to keep in check, but the power I showed that day seemed to be 100 times more dangerous. Remember, that fight gives me the creeps. The power of darkness disgusts me but at the same time makes me feel complete. It's quite complicated, but it doesn't matter. Maybe I don't want this kind of power that causes nothing but destruction. Rhea spoke and her eyes became wet and filled with tears. Rhea, if you didn't have that power, we wouldn't be alive. Alex smiled and wiped away his tears. We should also look at the bright side of these things. Alex could sense the unrest in Rhea's heart that happened every day. It also scared him because he didn't know much about the subject. The power of darkness along with the power of lust could mix together and transform Rhea into something he was afraid to even think about. He was only taught to calm the power of lust, not the other. And the goddess herself is silent about it, no matter how many times he asks her. Everything has a good and a bad side. As long as I'm with you, I won't let it devour you and make you remember who you are, Alex murmured as he captured her lips. Rhea's body trembled and she was shocked by Alex's sudden advance. But Alex didn't let her go because it tasted so sweet that Alex didn't want to let her go. Just like today, I will make you remember with my body that you are Alex von Leonhardt's wife. I will leave my presence engraved in your heart. I am irreparable, Alex said with a smile as he pushed Rhea into the princess position. Beast, Rhea murmured softly and showed a bit of resistance, though inside her heart was beating with sweetness and warmth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 417, Is it a torture room? A carriage was speeding towards its next destination. Inside, Alex and Rhea sat watching the scenery outside. They were accompanied by Johnson and 5 others. Max and Ian were abandoned in Lunar City and were ordered to search for information that was useful to them. They were on their way to Arlington, but before that, they needed to make a stop to deal with a certain noble. Their carriage entered the city of Oxhelm, ruled by the noble house of Count Grey, the one responsible for places filled with scum. All the cities under his command had been ruled by syndicates that hoarded people and filled Count Grey's treasury. Alex, I think we should both sneak in and take him out. Why are we wasting so much time here? Rhea asked in confusion. Count Grey seemed to be corrupt and shady. Even in the bad times of Arkham, he accuses the Emperor and tries to get into trouble with him. His behavior raises a lot of questions, and yes, there are a lot, Alex said. Isn't it Arkham's problem? Why are you interfering with it? Rhea asked, raising her eyebrows. Alex chuckled at Rhea's expression. Do you remember the person who came to kill us? Rhea frowned, her eyes turning cold as soon as Alex mentioned the name. He clearly said that he had 2 tasks. One was to kill me, and the other was to get rid of Noah and his men. And who could hire them? Alex asked. Are you saying that the nobles who oppose and try to rebel may have been the ones who did this? Maybe yes or maybe not. Alex rubbed his chin and said, Earl Grey was a suitable target that we stumbled upon. Since we're here, I wanted to take a look. Even if they're not behind this, it's possible that they have a connection to that secret organization. Rhea stared at Alex's gloomy expression. She knew exactly which organization he was referring to. For the past year they had been searching for him but couldn't find much because their means of communication were rather secret and no one who had visited them knew about their headquarters. It was even strange for people to make deals with an organization without knowing anything. Even the Magic Tower had a hard time dealing with the scrolls used by this organization. Knock, knock. Alex was brought out of her thoughts when Johnson knocked on the glass with a tap. "We're here." Alex nodded and stood up. "Raya, you'll be staying here, what?" "Why?" Raya asked irritatedly. "It's better that you fight less from now on. I want you to recover and get used to controlling your powers. So you are forbidden to use them until I say so." Alex spoke with a stern look. Seeing her disheartened look, Alex shook his head with a smile and kissed her forehead. "Forgive me, my queen, I'm telling you this for your own good." Alex walked out after calming Raya down and looked at the largest mansion in the center of the city. "Be careful," Johnson advised. "Take care of Raya and don't let her fight if you find something," Alex ordered, and his silhouette disappeared. Somewhere in the gray mansion, a man walked through a tunnel filled with darkness, and after exiting it, he took a look around. He was now in a hallway of an ancient-looking structure. The only source of light illuminating this place was a lit torch on one of the walls. Due to the low lighting conditions, he squints his eyes as he finds something dark blocking his path. He pulled out a torch from the side and after running his finger along the wall, he threw it. The torch hit an object sticking out from the wall and caught fire, spreading in a straight line until it formed a line. Soon, a door appeared in the dark wall. He was greeted by the sight of weapons neatly arranged in the display case on both sides. Long swords, short swords, now, spears, maces, daggers, shields, and much more. A huge variety of weapons were stacked endlessly against the wall. It seemed as if the place was a weapons warehouse for war, as each weapon was of top quality. The man walked past the array of weapons and came to the other end, where various things were present. There were boxes filled with treasures and riches everywhere. There were many shelves containing scrolls and scrolls. Chests loaded with gold and various riches. And in the middle of the treasury was a small table on which a small box was placed, emanating an ominous aura. As he looked at it, he felt something strange. His heart began to beat like crazy, and his eyes shone brightly. It was as if the box was calling out to him and telling him that it was his and his alone. He was attained transcendent rank early on. He had grown old and lost his touch. When he was about to give up, he found a way to obtain absolute power. For years he had been collecting things to make the trade and had finally succeeded. Although it was strange that the other party contacted him first and agreed to pay less, he didn't care. As long as he could grow stronger and live longer, he didn't care. With more power, he would shine in glory once more. He took a step towards the table, stood in front of the box and looked at it. His eyes were shining with greed and his heart was elated. However, when he managed to open the box, he heard a loud shout from someone that startled him. "What the hell is this dark place? Is it a torture room?" The man looked at the source of the voice and saw a child walking out from the dark wall. The boy, who was walking calmly, suddenly stopped when the sight of immense riches was reflected in his eyes, and then his gaze fixed on the old man, who shuddered back upon seeing the boy's murderous gaze. Chapter 418, Shrouded in Darkness. Alex, after entering the gray mansion, found a large basement beneath the mansion using his mana sensor. He noticed that Count Grey was entering alone, so he followed him. Count Grey was at the transcendent rank and posed no threat to him. He was momentarily excited to enter after witnessing the massive accumulated wealth that this bastard snatched from others, but he suddenly started to have a bad feeling in his heart as he noticed Count Grey trying to open a box, giving an ominous signal. "Don't open it," Alex shouted. Count Grey frowned as he saw the man there. "Who are you and how did you get in here?" Count Grey shouted angrily. Alex didn't respond. Instead, he charged towards Count Grey. Count Grey started to have a bad feeling in his heart and thought that the man was there for the box. He wanted to steal the power. "Shields!" Count Grey shouted, and Alex, who had traveled many meters in seconds, appeared near him but was stopped by an invisible shield that recoiled due to the rebound. Count Grey panicked and quickly opened the box, inside which was kept a black pill that emitted a dark aura, and immediately put it into his mouth. "Damn it!" Alex gritted his teeth and, clenching his fist, hit the barrier. Bang! The entire passage shook and a small crack appeared. Alex hit his fist again and again, causing tremors all around. The ground vibrated and soon the barrier burst into pieces. When Alex took a step forward, a powerful force attacked him. A powerful aura of darkness emerged from nowhere, and in the center of it was a man screaming for his mistakes. "What's wrong with me?" he screamed in terror from the deep pain. His veins bulged and his entire body felt like it was on fire. Alex felt a chill run down his spine as he saw a writhing mass of darkness enveloping Count Gray, and the man seemed to be melting. Alex didn't know if he should intervene as he was afraid of being engulfed by something unknown. He was looking at something he had no prior information about. He was brave, but not stupid. Unless he knew what was going on, he wasn't going to touch that disgusting piece of shit. Why the hell am I so unlucky? How can there be so many coincidences? Alex asked himself in frustration as he found it all too strange. Alex raised his sword and prepared a light elemental attack as he stared at the thing in front of him. Alex also fired spears made of light, but they were blocked by a dark fog that completely covered his vision. He wasn't able to see anything ahead. Maybe he could if he used darkness mana, but he didn't want to switch to dark mode unnecessarily. Soon, the black fog began to slowly dissipate and a dark figure appeared. His eyes emanated a dark greenish light, and his entire body seemed to be shrouded in dark armor. Alex could see that the man was alive, but he himself seemed to be lost. The man's current appearance was similar to the shadow demon Alex had seen in hell. Don't tell me, what he eats before could turn a normal human into a dark and gloomy creature similar to shadow demons. Shadow demons were the guardians of hell created by the devil. They looked like humans except their body was strong and they were covered in darkness armor. Screech. The shadow figure in front of Alex let out a beastly scream. Twisted claws extended from its arm and it leapt towards Alex trying to rip him apart. Alex pulled back his sword and dodged it from the side, letting the claw hit the ground leaving a claw mark. As he dodged, Alex swung his sword, which was stopped by the shadowy creature's other hand. Sticking. Alex's sword vibrated and the sound echoed throughout the place. Of course. Its claws are strong like metal and its armor might as well be very strong, Alex muttered as he ran. The shadow demon threw out its claw as it chased after Alex. Screech. Screech. Alex staggered his body and dodged to the side, dodging the claws as he leapt through the passage. The shadow creature that used to be Count Gray has lost all of its reason. It seemed like the only thing going through its mind was to rip Alex's part apart. He fought out of pure instinct and attacked anything that threatened him. The wall trembled as he slashed his claw at the wall and destroyed it. Cracks appeared on the ground and soon tremors radiated upwards. The entire Gray mansion seemed to tremble due to the underground fight, making everyone restless. Roar. Unable to catch Alex, he roared furiously, seemingly shaking and destroying the ground beneath his power. His strength was at the peak of the legendary rank and seemed to be one step away from becoming mythic rank, but the power seems to become unstable, making him more frenzied. Normally, Alex would have gotten rid of him as quickly as possible, but his keen senses noticed something was wrong and he was able to find something. He was skeptical of the sudden turn of events. Since Count Gray seemed to be overly keen on taking the pill, it means that he had arrived recently and he was sure that it was today. This made Alex think whether the delivery man was still in the mansion or in the city. And Alex noticed the effect of the pill, so he was sure that the other side was not deluded enough to let this monster run wild and be detected by higher authorities, as it could tear apart a part of the entire city and cause an irreparable loss. So he concluded that they wanted Count Gray to kill someone who had arrived that day. He doesn't know if their arrival was within his prediction, but after using a mana map and sensing the flow of mana, he finally caught two rats far away from the mansion observing the situation. Two dark elves. One at the transcendent rank and one at the peak legendary rank. Alex had marked their location and covered his sword in an aura of light as he wondered how to give them the biggest surprise of their lives. Chapter 419, Shrouded in Darkness 2. The shockwave generated by the fight spread at a terrifying speed and awakened the underground passage. A dark aura leaped out and covered everything as it filled the entire place with a loud beastly cry. Boom. 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 The waves radiated out one after another, threatening to tear the narrow place apart. Bang. A figure shot out like a meteorite that crashed into the black wall. Upon crashing into the wall, the figure's silhouette flew backwards but managed to control its momentum and landed on its tiptoes as it slid a few meters. Alex didn't even have enough time to react to the surprise as the entire wall collapsed and a figure shattered it while shooting straight at him. A large, tightly clenched fist flew towards him, leaving behind a flash of a dark trail that extinguished the flame of the torch on the wall. Swoosh. The attack came from too close a distance and its speed was too fast. Alex urgently raised his arms as he held his sword to block the attack. Hit. The power behind the punch was so incredible that both of his legs were thrown outwards as he flew towards the wall on the other side before crashing into it. Crack! The rubble from the broken wall fell to the ground. Alex gulped, tilted his head to the side, and evaded another punch that left a massive hole in the wall behind him. The creature was growing stronger and more skilled as it continued to fight. Alex was analyzing and processing data and taking his time, but it seemed like it wouldn't last long enough, and he needed to shift gears. Two shadow arms rose from his back, and without a single pause, he began attacking again and again. Alex was struck with 4 hands at once, which left only afterimages. Each powerful blow was strong enough to kill high-ranking warriors. Alex, who was blocking the attack clumsily at first, began to throw his fist faster. The barrage of the attack from the 4 separate arms was being blocked, deflected or redirected by just 2 arms. His movements were so fast that they now looked like a collection of afterimages. The dark figure's eyes narrowed and a flash of surprise appeared in his dark green eyes. It was surprising to see the man match his speed. Although he had lost his mind and was fighting on instinct, his instincts could sense that the human was weaker than him, but he was still able to match his speed. The beastly instincts within him screamed in anger and rage. They began to punch their fist faster and faster. The moment those subconscious thoughts appeared, a light flashed before their vision. It was the punch that the human threw at him. Bang! Alex jumped up and threw a punch that hit the face of the shadow demon, who fell to the ground and rolled on the ground. Still, he stood up and pounced on Alex despite small cracks appearing on his face. The shadow creature flew towards him like an arrow and threw a huge fist at him. Boom! The punch cut through the air and crashed into the wall, causing it to crumble into countless pieces of rubble. Alex dodged it, gained some distance, and launched his own shot. The dark creature launched its own fist as a counterattack. 2 powerful fists collided with each other and pressed hard on the ground. The shadow creature's torso tilted and was eventually pushed back, but before it could counterattack, Alex did a double-double. The vile shadow creature leaped high, and tilting its body, it landed on the ceiling with its feet and leaped towards Alex. Crack! The stone tiles on the ceiling couldn't withstand the momentum and spat out rubble as it shattered into countless pieces. Many arms appeared on its back with an obtuse angle directed towards Alex. Alex stepped forward with his sword and pulled out another one of the swords scattered on the stand from afar and leaped forward. Beneath the interior, which was neither too dark nor too light, a glowing crimson trail was left behind by Alex's movement as he pursued his moves. Clammo! 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 Weapons clashed and rubbed against each other. Deafening roars continued unabated as Alex and the dark figure exchanged countless attacks and counterattacks in an instant. Inside the massive passage, the world slowed down and slowly crawled. Only these two were writhing and struggling with all their might, trying to fight against the world's flaw. Alex hadn't used the dual-wielding skill for a long time, but even after that he didn't seem rusty or back down. It was a very even battle as swords clashed against each other, attempting to cut each other. After exchanging several blows, Alex figured that a normal attack could hurt and damage him, but it couldn't kill him. He needs to hit this guy with a strong attack imbued with light elements and overpower him. Swish! 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 Leaving cracks and scrapes all over the tunnel, filling it with debris and waste. 2 paths overlapped. The ground and ceiling began to shake. If this continues, the huge mansion above the place might collapse or suffer damage. Alex's shoulder moved slightly. The shadow creature's claw brushed past his shoulder, leaving a gap that couldn't be detected by the naked eye. Alex's sensory perception was at its highest, and they had exceeded the limit of his realm, and he was able to read the trajectories of every weapon in the enemy's hand. He poured all his mana into the sword, imbuing it with the light element, and decided to give it his all in the next blow. As he did this, he dodged the shadow creature's attack with a narrow margin and managed to evade the attacks accurately. Both of his swords were shining. A deep layer of light sheathed both swords. He gripped both swords tightly, and when the figure appeared before him, he swung both swords with all his might. Swish! A pillar of light erupted, enveloping the dark creature and launching it towards the ceiling. The beam of light didn't stop and burst from the ceiling with a prolonged burst. Boom! Chapter 420, Hidden Rats. Outside the Grey Mansion, 2 people watched what was happening in the Grey Mansion. The peace and silence was interrupted by the earthquakes that were transmitted throughout the city. The people around the city were startled by the sudden tremors. There were no traceable fluctuations to ordinary people, But those who were awakened and had a bit of mastery in sensing the flow of mana noticed the absolutely horrifying whirlwind surrounding the giant mansion. In fact, the magical energy that was seeping in was so wild and brutal that the space around the mansion began to distort and a crack appeared, causing the walls to shatter into rubble. The knights and armed personnel were alerted and searched for the source of the strange occurrence. The guards of the Knights' mansion began to evacuate the people working in it, while the guards working in the city tried to guide those near the Grey Mansion to leave quickly. The shops and stores were closed down. The inns and bars emptied and people were asked to leave. Cracks appeared on the ground of the roads as they fell like waves. Inside the mansion, debris and dust began to fall. All the glassware inside was broken due to the strong tremors. The garden was in a mess and everything was in a frenzy, and a state of panic could be seen everywhere. Standing on top of a small building, one of the dark-robed figures became worried upon seeing the scene and broke the silence. "Is the man who is currently fighting within our target?" Lore asked. "I am not sure about that," Moi said with a grim expression. "We just have to wait and see the outcome. Whoever emerges victorious, shall we kill him?" "But miss, how did you expect that man to be here? We received information that someone is investigating Count Grey and would sneak up on him, and we want that person killed. But seeing the things that happened within 2 hours after the delivery, I guess this wasn't the targeted person," Moi said with a tired look. "The person who might be investigating Count Grey should be quite strong and backed by strong guards, but the person who is fighting Count Grey now seems to be alone." They had been keeping watch on the place for a while, but didn't even notice any suspicious individuals entering inside. As the two dark elves argued, their expression crumbled. What the, boom. With a loud explosion, a part of the ground collapsed, and a horrifying beam of light erupted from the place, shooting into the sky. Violent energy stirred the sky, shocking everyone in the mansion, and shockwaves spread out, causing everyone to stumble. The two dark elves were startled by what they saw, and quickly took a step back with a conflicted look. The aura close to mythic rank that was fighting just now instantly disappeared from the attack. The light ascended into the sky and dispersed in an instant, but it did not go unnoticed by the eyes of others. "We are under attack. Run away from here, get out of here or you will die. Hide somewhere." Screams and screams could be heard and the common people were frightened and panicked. People began to evacuate and disperse away from the Grey Mansion. "He was killed like this. We don't know if we have to kill this person or not, so what are you going to do now?" Lore said with a suffocated expression. "Calm down, Lore, hide your aura. We're quite far from the place. Let's observe the human for now, and if we deem him dangerous we'll kill him. He can't get through the hiding place." Moi spoke, however, her complexion distorted and her eyes widened as the man's presence disappeared before she vanished. Suddenly, a dark veil seemed to envelop them and hide the outside. Moi was all too familiar with the situation. It was the looming shadow of death. All the hair on the back of their necks stood up. Swallowing their dried saliva, they bowed their heads as they heard a weak, hoarse voice. "Hello, ladies. I hope I haven't kept you waiting too long." The voice crashed into them, drowning them in despair. Moi didn't make any hasty moves and raised her eyebrows at Lore, and then, a short sword appeared in her hand and she shouted, "Lore, go!" Boom. A sinister energy struck Alex, trying to invade her insides and interfere with her mana. Alex stared at a pair of dark short swords that clashed against her sword. The short sword was filled with curses, and if the enemy got cut, they would suffer a terrible fate. Lore, who was about to run, stopped as his body froze as he saw the scene of Moi's attack being easily stopped. Alex's eyes turned cold and the temperature drops considerably, causing Mois to be speechless. Mois felt as if he was contemplating his death. The man who appeared with a carefree and jovial tone seemed to suddenly become indifferent. As soon as he attacked, he felt something inside the man change and unleashed his rage. The mana escaping from Alex was enormous and the space around him began to twist. The building they were in began to tremble and cracks appeared everywhere, causing it to shatter. Mois cried inwardly with a single thought. "Does this guy have a split personality? You're the one who appeared here to attack me. I didn't find you. Also, what is this ridiculous strength? You're clearly at an early legendary level, but he didn't even flinch even though my attack carried my full strength. Also, the concealment skill the man used carries a faint trace of darkness mana. Where did this beast come from?" Alex's eyes stopped Mois with a single glance. Her short sword was imbued with a curse, her nails had been contaminated with poison, and there's a short dagger at the end of her ponytail that had been poisoned. On top of all this, she had the blessing of darkness, which was quite strong. The other lady who remained rooted didn't have the blessings, meaning that this lady is special. Countless thoughts appeared in her mind and she smiled. Alex pushed the short sword away and pointed at Moss. I'll give you a chance. Tell me who you are and why you chose me. I'll let you live. Moss's eyebrows furrowed for a moment. Surely she had the strength to kill me. Why is she giving me any leeway? Is she lying? Sir, you were never our target. Unfortunately, you showed up at the wrong time and place. Alex's lips curled up and spoke. Girl, you may not know me, but I know you very well, Miss Moss. I am your superior and a member of that organization. Moss blinked with a surprised look and asked with a handshake, Sir, who are you? Alex sneered and said, You are not worthy of knowing my name. Let's get out of here before we get caught. Meet me outside the city, Alex muttered and disappeared in a flash. And don't bring that trash with you. Their presence is irritating. Chapter 421, Hidden Rats 2. When the war began all over the world, Alex took her time to read up on the Dark Elves and demons. Just like the elves, the Dark Elves had 8 noble clans whose bloodline was said to have been blessed by the god of darkness 1,000 years ago. Alex didn't know if it was true or false, but seeing Moss belong into the Azure clan as shown in the eyes of truth, greatly piqued her interest. The moment she felt the blessing of darkness, Alex just wanted to tear the girl apart, but she calmed her mind and thought of a devilish trick. She didn't know if she could get any information or not, but it was worth a try. Moss with beads of sweat sliding down her face appeared outside the city and was greeted by ice arrows. She pulled out her short sword and cut down the ice arrows. Sir, Moss narrowed her eyes and raised her weapon as Alex sneaked up behind her and kicked her away. Moss spun her short sword and blocked the kick with it, but the fierce coercion caused her to stumble and throw her back. Moss twisted her body and landed on the ground with an uneasy heart. It was just a test. You were sent to deal with a guy who's close to the mythic rank, so I wondered why they sent a useless minion like you. Moss bit her lips and lowered her head in embarrassment. Before I say anything, I wanted to ask you what your position is in the organization, Moss asked. Moss felt a suffocating pressure hitting her, making it difficult to breathe. I'm in disguise, and do you think you're worthy enough to know my position? You want to die? If I kill you, no one from your Azure clan will bother to find trouble with me. You're wrong to think that I'm at an early legendary level. Is it possible for a person at this level to defeat the thing? You can't even see past my level and you dare to question me. Moss trembled in fear and Alex's words oppressed him even further. Loyalty and order were absolute in the organization. If the person before him belonged to higher order, he was already benevolent enough not to kill her. What's your rank now, Moss? I'm a 2nd rank. Don't you know? Moss said with a confused expression. Do you think I have time to keep an eye on you? It's just a coincidence that we met. Did you know where you went wrong? Moss bites her lower lip as she sees the man scrutinizing her with a gaze filled with animosity. I have a rough idea of your mission, and do you think there was no better way to carry it out? If that creature had come out and wreaked havoc, our plans and existence might have come to light. Alex pressed her, which almost made her body tremble. What was your mission? We were ordered to implant darkness seeds and then distribute darkness pills to the nobles, and after they achieve their purpose, we are to get rid of them or the other side. Alex tried his best to keep his expression. Although his expression was almost blank and indifferent, he was shocked inside. Darkness seed. Darkness pill. Alex muttered slowly, trying to process the information. He doesn't know anything about the darkness seed, but he guessed that the darkness pill could be used to get rid of someone, or especially their pawns. Since the demons have captured the borders and Arkham is in ruins, they no longer need the pawns. It was time to get rid of them. Alex wasn't sure who the other party was, but he gulped. Alex calmed down and spoke. You were ordered to get rid of them, not expose them. You should hand over that thing right before the other party shows up, but you handed them over just a few hours ago? With your measly strength, can you even scratch it? Alex spoke in a cold voice and glared at her. Moss blinked and pondered for a moment before speaking. Sir, the shadow creatures can't hunt us down. Although we can't control them, they can't overpower us either due to the power of darkness, don't you know? Alex wasn't puzzled and simply nodded his head formally and said, I know, but I forgot due to the lapse of a moment. I'm human after all and didn't receive the blessing until now. I understand, Moss muttered and lowered her head awkwardly as she looked at Alex in reverence. Alex's eyebrows furrowed as she watched her look at her. Why are you looking at me like I'm your idol? Have I pressured you in some way? Don't tell me my nonsense worked. I know I'm a master at nonsense, but it still works. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm sorry, stop saying sorry over and over again. It makes you look pathetic. Ah. Yes, it's just that, only talented humans like you could use the darkness element without blessings. Going through that heartbreaking experiment is something no one could ever imagine. There are only 6 of you in the entire organization, Moss spoke excitedly like a fangirl. That's right, Alex nodded his head proudly. He received another shocking piece of information. So Cherry isn't the first. Alex's eyes were drawn for a moment when he heard about the experiment, and a very disturbing thought came to his mind. What if Rhea is also part of the experiment and they ask her for it through some means? Alex's expression worsened and he shook his head to get rid of it. Now go, don't waste any more of my time. Moss looked at Alex for a moment, bowed his head in gratitude and turned to leave but was startled when someone tapped him on the shoulder. Can you give me a darkness pill? Alex asked coldly. But sir, I have to hand them over and finish the mission. That would hinder my mission, and I might be punished even if I belong to the noble dark elf lineage. Moss tried to coax her, but her body stiffened and a strong pressure gripped her shoulder as Alex tightened his grip, causing her to fall to her knees. Chapter 422, The Deception. Moss's lips parted wide as a deep pain shot through her entire body from her shoulder. It felt like the person was going to tear her shoulder apart. Sweat ran down her face and she looked at the person with a pleading look. You are a disobedient junior who may be hated by others. The reason I say this is that you will encounter some trouble on the last mission. I only tried to save you as a junior, but instead of thanking me, you questioned my kind intention. Alex spoke spitefully in a cold, annoyed voice. Moss's entire body was petrified and she groaned in pain. A small cracking sound was heard and she felt her shoulder blade dislocate due to the grip. Beads of sweat dripped down her forehead as she wondered how a legendary rank could muster such strength. His strength defies the limits of rank. She wanted to retaliate but her entire body seemed to have frozen. Please forgive this lowly being, it was my mistake for not being able to understand your kindness, Moss pleaded. I need that dark pill for a reason and if you're wondering what the reason is, then you should know that you're in no position to know things beyond your level. Do you understand? Don't worry about trivial matters and do as I tell you. Alex released his grip and Moss slumped to the ground with a haggard look. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he took out a box and handed it to Alex. Alex's eyes narrowed in surprise as he felt the same ominous feeling he felt after Count Gray took the pill. Alex suppressed his curiosity and pretended to be indifferent and took the box from Moss and stored it into the dimensional storage ring. Alex smiled and touched Moss's forehead. Moss was enveloped in a bright light and her broken shoulder healed in an instant and a strong current of power flowed through her body. Thank you, sir, for blessing this ignorant man and healing me, Moss bowed her head. Alex nodded and waved her hand. Now go and get out of my sight as quickly as possible. Moss nodded and stood up, but her legs were still shaking from the suppression. Taking a moment to steady herself, she jumped and vanished. Alex stared at her as she faded away and smiled with a sinister expression. It's not a blessing but a curse, you foolish girl. He had marked her and could sense her location, allowing Alex to track her, which would lead him to the organization where he could finally find some clues about them and learn their motives. He also wanted to put a curse on her to sense things, but he was afraid that it could be sensed by the other side and someone skilled in the curse could find out about him by tracking him. He wasn't willing to let her go alive, but for the sake of the future, he needed to endure it. Besides, he was trying his luck to get this pill, but he didn't know if he would succeed or not. Alex turned around and left after sensing that Moss was finally gone. Alex walked through the crowd and quickly ran towards his group. His struggle might have scared these ordinary people. When he got near the place where his people were, he found them surrounding someone and facing them. Did they have any trouble? Alex muttered and made his way through the crowd to get there. When he got closer, he saw a group of guards facing them. Alex snuck in and appeared behind Rhea and whispered, "What happened?" Rhea was startled by his sudden appearance but quickly composed herself and muttered, "These guards are monitoring us and after finding out that we are adventurers and woke up, they are asking for our help." Alex narrowed his eyes, stepped forward and said, "Hello sir, I am Rex, the leader of this squad. How may I help you?" He gasped in relief knowing that the other side was not looking for trouble. "Hello Rex, I am Oscar. As you see, the situation in the city is dangerous and we need as many hands as possible. But sir, we are just low-level adventurers traveling the world. What could we do against a fight between two giants? I fear that my team will be crushed to death just by the aftermath of the fight." Alex spoke with an innocent and fearful expression. Johnson and the other 5 men's lips twitched as they watched Alex act. They knew that this man was the cause of all that panic, but he was pretending to be a spectator. "We just need your help to evacuate the citizens. So please lend us your strength," Oscar said in a polite tone. Alex scratched his cheek with an embarrassed expression. He wished he could say that there was no danger since the fight was already over, but he can't. "We can help with that," Alex nodded. Oscar nodded and gave them a set of instructions. The guards will form a security perimeter while the citizens near Count Gray's mansion would be evacuated. Alex nodded, splitting up his team and asking them to lead the others. "Listen, after evacuating, we will infiltrate the crowd and leave quietly. Also, ask someone to guide the carriage," Alex ordered. Ridiah accompanied Alex, and the two of them made their way through and released their strength to lead the citizens. Alex shouted out a set of instructions for them to follow. The common people felt the man's strength and, accepting his words, calmed down. Alex frowned when he saw Ridiah sniffing around him suddenly. "What are you doing, Alex? I can smell your feminine fragrance." "Where were you?" Alex's senses screamed in danger at the sight of Ridiah's playful expression. "Isn't she too possessive? Still, I like her, ha ha ha. I just ran into an acquaintance." Ridiah raised an eyebrow and asked curiously, "What acquaintance?" "I'll tell you later when we finish our task here." Chapter 423, An Anonymous Figure. Alex narrated the events that took her by surprise. She grabbed her skirt tightly in rage. She wanted to kill all those who were involved in that organization. Now it was a matter of deep hatred towards her. They soon returned to their work and gave them direction. Alex watched the trail of people coming out of the narrow alleys while standing on top of a building. He helps out when some trouble arises due to the tug-of-war. Being there, he saw several situations where people were pushed by others carelessly, while many tripped and fell and became stepping stones for others. From afar it was harsh and cruel, but how could people who have no strength to protect themselves think of others when their own lives were in danger? And since Alex was the cause of all this, she had no intention of letting anyone die or get hurt because of the unruly crowd crammed into a narrow alley. Under her watch, no one was allowed to get hurt. Ridiah watched the guilty look on Alex's face and whispered softly, "Even though your fight caused chaos among the people, it at least saved them from a bigger disaster. You saved many of them who could have been trampled to death by that guy." Ridiah's pleasant voice reassured Alex. Trying to ease the situation, Ridiah tried to tease Alex a little. "By the way, as far as I know, you wouldn't have returned empty-handed. You must have hoarded and stolen something from the Gray Mansion," Ridiah asked in a mocking voice. Alex chuckled and spoke in a serious voice. "Hey, are you accusing me unfairly? Do I look like a thief to you? I haven't even touched a thread or a needle in the Gray Mansion. I'm a noble knight, that means, except for a thread and a needle, you've taken everything." Alex's jaw dropped wide and he looked back to see Johnson staring at him with a blank expression. "You've looted all of the underground fortunes accumulated by Count Gray over the years," Ridiah said, acting shocked. Alex stumbled into a shocked expression and asked Johnson angrily, "How did you know?" "Max told me about it." "It's your daily routine." Alex gritted his teeth and muttered, "Dogshit, Max." Ridiah laughed and shook her head in dismay. "Something never changes. Well, enough with the joking around for now. Time to sneak away," Alex muttered as he saw things calm down a bit. As Alex snuck in and moved through the crowd preparing to leave, a black carriage with the Arkham flag on it surrounded by hundreds of knights sped towards the city. While the entire city was in chaos, a carriage with the Imperial flag flying upon it appeared near the gates of Oscar City. The knights standing in front soon noticed the disorder before them and halted their march. "Stop!" A stern and eerie voice echoed from the carriage and paralyzed the knight. They kicked their horses, which let out a powerful bellow signaling their arrival. The guard stationed near the city gates quickly ran over and saluted them. The guard bowed his head and said, "Greetings to the Imperial Knight." The knights nodded and one of them asked as he dismounted from his horse, "Why is there so much panic and unrest?" There were strong vibrations emerging from the Gray Mansion, and as we were trying to investigate, a loud explosion occurred followed by a terrifying breath from two powerhouses from higher realms piercing each other's throats. The knights' expressions paled and they hurriedly asked, "What is your strength, sir? We are too weak to sense your level. Quickly go to the Gray Mansion immediately." His order was immediately executed. The guards retreated and the people who witnessed the flag stood at the side. When the carriage arrived at the periphery of the Gray Mansion, an elderly knight with a stern posture stepped down. The knights greeted him and said, "Sir Wilford, what are your orders?" Wilford rolled his eyes and ordered, "Investigate everyone working here, and what about his family, sir? Your son is your capital and your wife has been invited to a banquet in a nearby kingdom. Ask them to come. If necessary, we will follow their movements and keep an eye on them," Wilford ordered and walked forward. Wilford inquired about Count Grey's recent affairs and learned of a certain package delivered to Count Grey. The package arrived 3 hours earlier, and Count Grey personally handled it and disappeared with it somewhere and remains missing until now. They were led to a deep pit formed in the corner of the garden. Wilford stood in front of the deep pit that led to the ground filled with darkness. It looked like an abyss. Wilford didn't know what was there, but he could sense a strong fluctuation of ominous energy. A bright beam of light reportedly emerged and pierced through the ground and extended into the sky. Walking around the large hole and inspecting the mana fluctuation, he could curiously only sense the mana of a single entity. At that moment, a group of knights appeared and said, "Sir Wilford, we have found a secret passage that leads to an underground cellar in the mansion." Wilford narrowed his eyes and thought for a moment about the next step. While he was deep in thought, he heard a faint whisper from beside him. "Ask them to go down the passage." Wilford looked to the side and saw a man with reddish-brown hair and a mask over his eyes standing beside him. He seemed invisible to others as no one could sense him except him. "But my lord, what if they encounter something they cannot handle?" The problem had been dealt with and the assailant had left the place as there were no more fluctuations, the masked man muttered. Wilford nodded and gave the order to the knights. "Wilford, come with me, let's go down the hole." Wilford followed the masked man's advice and jumped in with him. Hiss. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.